Hey everyone! Welcome to Talking Simulator this week. I'm Cameron.
I'm Corey, and that was my first time seeing the intro.
Me too. So, yeah, this week we wanted to play Destiny 2 because I play a lot of. Well, I wanted to play Destiny 2. Corey is like, yeah, sure, I can tolerate that.
I can watch.
Because I play this game a lot. If you may know from my home streams, it's basically what I just sit around and play. Because on one hand, it requires almost nothing of me. Right?
It's a very just casual. There's always stuff to do.
Yeah.
You just go around, do the same things over and over again.
Yeah,
make progress.
You kind of walk around, you click on things. It's kind of like one of those walking simulators, right? Only the things that you click on tend to be the faces of monsters, but it's all mappable onto the same experience. And on the other hand, it exists in this really interesting universe with horrible monsters and great heroes, and it's recently started to try to incorporate that lore of the universe it lives in into the game.
What?
Yes, it's very bold, and it's meeting with some success in my opinion, because historically Bungie has not done a good job of taking its wonderful universes that its writers come up with and making you feel like you're a part of them. Rather, it's like a skybox that
some
you can't
stranger
interact
comes
with.
up to you and tells you that someone famous told someone else something, and you're like, "That's flavor."
Yeah. Oh. Yeah. But recently, they've started to integrate it a bit more, and I wanted to talk a bit about this. And the conceit for this week's episode is we're going to be talking a bit about close reading, and close reading is something that most of you are probably familiar with because it's generally taught in high school English classes, but not uniformly. Many people may have been taught close reading. Many other people are not taught close reading, or have been taught close reading and not told that it's close reading.
Yes.
So close reading is, in the most general terms, a basic analytical way of reading a text where you pay close attention to vocabulary, structure. If you're looking at a play, you're looking at who's on stage, who's not on stage, who's talking to who. And you're in film, you would be looking at the composition of the shot.
Yep.
And in general, one of the more useful tools in close reading is taking a step back, putting it down, and saying, "What just happened?
Yep.
What was I just told? What did I just see?"
Yes.
In a not at all ironic or rhetorical way, trying to take a step back from the text and rephrase what just happened in your own words, which can sometimes make you say things that surprise you. And this led to one of the only times I've made a prof snort in a lecture. We were talking about a Flannery O'Connor short story called Revelation, in which because it's a Flannery O'Connor short story, a wretched Southern Catholic woman is sitting in a doctor's office waiting to be told about some hideous diagnosis. And she's sitting there and quietly judging everyone else in the doctor's office because it's a Flannery O'Connor short story and everyone's awful.
Yes.
And, she's staring at people and being like, well, that person's poor, and that person's ugly, and that person's dirty, and I don't know why I don't like that person, but I hate them. And one of the people whose gaze she lingers on is this college student who's reading a textbook. And she winds up striking up a conversation with the student's mother. And they both talk about, things like how important it is to bathe, right? And just, loudly talking about, in a very passive-aggressive way, about everyone else in the book.
Right.
Or in the doctor's office. And finally, the college student, who's giving her dirty looks this entire time, as if she can read her mind, closes her textbook and hurls it at her, striking her square in the head. And this is when she realizes that the textbook is called Human Development. Later on, she has a doctor's appointment. She goes home and has a dream in which all of the people in the doctor's office enter heaven before her.
Right.
And she wakes up and she's like, well, that was a mean dream to have, brain. Why did you do that to me? And I brought up, she gets... I was making a point about the book, right? Maybe the book is important, right? And somebody else in the class was like, oh, I don't know, I think it's just like one of those set dressing things. And I said, she is struck in the head with a book called Human Development, which produces a dramatic change in her outlook. And the prof was like, yeah. And yeah. So that, I find that's, many people are introduced to close reading by way of an example. Somebody in my chat mentioned the example that they had been given, which was, like you're reading a story and your English teacher points out that the drapes in the room they're sitting in are blue, and that means the characters are depressed.
It always comes up in the poetry modules.
Yeah.
Always.
Always. Like every detail is important, and usually and that's a way of, I don't like that. I find that...
Because, the student in that case doesn't actually have a reason other than being told to, unpack and, you don't get to pick the work that you're examining, you don't get to, choose a focus or anything like that. You're just like, wow, Robert Frost likes the cold.
Don't. Well, yeah, and it's... It kind of glances off the surface, right? And I always like that version of close reading, where you're like, well, Flannery O'Connor bothered to name the book and then did something with the book, and the book produced a result. And maybe we should look at that for an insight into how that worked and why. So that was something that I enjoyed. And then another thing that I enjoyed, which I think is another way of looking at close reading, is actually from my favorite short story ever. Which is a Vladimir Nabokov short story called Signs and Symbols.
Okay.
And you don't need to know what's going on in the short story, but if you want to Google Nabokov Signs and Symbols, it's like a 4-page long short story, and it's free on the New Yorker website. But I'm going to read to you a very short excerpt from it, because I find this helpful when I'm thinking about what close reading is, and how maybe it can get away from us, and how we have to be a bit careful with it. But, okay. Here we're going to go. The premise is that there's an elderly Eastern European couple, Russian couple, who have emigrated to the United States, and they've gone to visit their son in the hospital, in the mental hospital, in an institution where he's being cared for because he is, as they describe, incorrigibly deranged in the brain. They've been turned away, and now the mother is thinking about her son's diagnosis. The system of his delusions had been the subject of an elaborate paper in a scientific monthly, which the doctor at the sanatorium had given to them to read, but long before that she and her husband had puzzled it out for themselves. Referential mania, the article had called it. In these very rare cases, the patient imagines that everything happening around him is a veiled reference to his personality and existence. He excludes real people from the conspiracy because he considers himself to be so much more intelligent than other men. Phenomenal nature shadows him wherever he goes. Clouds in the staring sky transmit to each other, by means of slow signs, incredibly detailed information regarding him. His inmost thoughts are discussed at nightfall in manual alphabet by darkly gesticulating trees. Pebbles or stains or sunflecks form patterns representing, in some awful way, messages that he must intercept. Everything is a cipher, and of everything, he is the theme. All around him there are spies. Some of them are detached observers, like glass surfaces and still pools. Others, such as coats and store windows, are prejudiced witnesses, lynchers at heart. Others, again, running water, storms, are hysterical to the point of insanity, have a distorted opinion of him, and grossly misinterpret his actions. He must always be on his guard and devote every minute and module of life to the decoding of the undulation of things. The very air he exhales is indexed and filed away. If only the interest he provokes were limited to his immediate surroundings, but alas, it is not. With distance, the torrents of wild scandal increase in volume of volubility. The silhouettes of his blood corpuscles, magnified 1,000,000 times, flit over vast plains, and still further away, great mountains of unbearable solidity and height sum up, in terms of granite and groaning firs, the ultimate truth of his being. So, I always read that as Nabokov maybe playing a bit with his readers, that, maybe not every detail is meant to be interpreted in such a way, but we're humans and we like doing that, and this is kind of a fun game that we play. Only you have to remember it's kind of a fun game that you play, and not necessarily the complete content of a text where everything is meaningful. Otherwise, you wind up founding religions, right? Like,
Oops.
yeah. So, which brings us to another topic, which is that close reading kind of grows out of an earlier practice called hermeneutics, which itself grew out of exegesis, the practice of close reading of the Bible, wherein you would go through, or people would go through line by line and try to figure out when things were going to occur and what everything meant in the Bible. And those terms kind of get used a bit interchangeably, and we'll actually revisit one of them later because it gets used in the game. But it's important to realize that this is a form of play, and that all interpretation is kind of a form of play, right? We don't necessarily know what the author intends, and maybe what the author intends isn't the point.
There's also an added difficulty with video games because the experience isn't necessarily repeatable for everyone who's approaching the text.
Yes, exactly. Like
Because, like, it's a feedback thing. You're
Right,
part
the
of the
system
system
change.
of the text.
Right, which is kind of like years and years ago when somebody asked me, well, you get into one of those horrible debates in university, it's 2 a.m, and somebody asks, well, what is art?
Those
Right.
are great.
And you're like, oh, holy Christ. Well, I don't know. Maybe it's a system that you enter into with a thing, and art isn't what hangs on the wall, but it's the interpretive act that exists between you and the thing on the wall.
Yeah.
And I'm like, holy shit, get a pen, right? Like, I want to write that down because I think that might be more useful than like saying, well, it's Picasso, or it's
It's something that causes an emotional response.
Yeah.
Something like that.
yeah, like maybe it's the system of or it's the phenomenon
Yeah.
between art and interpreter. And I don't know if that's true or not, but I thought it was fun and maybe useful, and it helped me think about things. So one of the things that we need to keep in mind when we're doing close reading is that generally speaking, if an author wants to give you something that has only one meaning, they'll write a legal brief or an essay. But stories breed uncertainty, right? Not all of them are meant to be strictly interpreted in one way. And even if they are, then nothing's saying that you have to do that, right? Stories get a lot of legs when they change meanings, right? The example I always come back to is that Don Quixote was originally supposed to be a clown,
Yeah.
right? Like a Homer Simpson kind of like idiot, and you were supposed to like laugh at him as he tilts at windmills. And our modern reading of this character is a much more sympathetic one.
Yeah. He's like a tragic hero.
Yeah, and that's kind of what gives it life, right? If somebody handed you Don Quixote and were like, here's a book about an old man who has a very bad time, but he's stupid, and you're supposed to laugh at him, you'd be like, well, that seems mean,
Yeah.
right? But you don't have to do that. Anyway, let's play a video game. We'll click on things, and I'll show you like a couple of ways of doing things.
Wow.
And yeah, buckle up, because we started pretentious, and we're just going from there.
I don't think we're claiming to be anything we're not.
Yeah. I've got
We
an
play
under-
video games for a living.
I have an undergrad degree in books.
I dropped out of university. For computers and history.
Nice. So, what I've done here is I've got my load. Destiny 2 servers were, of course, on fire this morning, so I was prepared to have to find something else, but here we are. Hopefully everything is fixed now. So what I'd like to do... Oh, I also got my Wayfarer title today.
Good numbers, good numbers.
Yeah, so I have my main, my warlock, and the other day I started off a hunter, and I have advanced her to the point where she's about to go and do her first subclass story mission,
Okay.
which is, if you're not familiar with the story of Destiny 2, There are magic space wizards. And the first thing that happens in Destiny 2 is that you lose all your powers, and you have to regain your powers slowly. And she's about to go back and get her second of 3 power trees unlocked. And I want to talk a bit about how the way that Bungie decided to show you how that happens. But first off, what I'd like to do is just start off with a blank sheet of paper. I've made a brand new Titan. She's a lady robot.
Good.
Who punches people. And huge shout out to Bungie's animators, because the melee animation for Titans is just this incredibly satisfying, like, boom, boom.
Yeah. I'm always a fan of the Warlock's Mind Blast, though.
Oh, yeah, where they just like, right? Flying spaghetti, I believe so.
Ikora, if you tell
So
me
we
this
can
is a
watch
practical
these,
joke,
oh, rest in
well,
peace,
I
Sundance.
would be really impressed.
Impressing you, Cade, is the easiest thing I'll do all day.
Let's get serious, people.
Zavala, this is my serious face. Can't you tell?
Ikora, what have you got?
Someone or something has sabotaged the Skyline defense systems.
And comms have been
This
spotting
isn't
for the last
necessarily,
2
like,
hours,
super important,
ever
but,
since
I
Reveal on
mean,
the Wall was gummed up.
we're here to look at things, right? What are we being shown? The 3 Titan, or the 3 Guardian
Vanguard
Vanguards
leaders. Yeah.
Maybe it's
are kind of caught completely off guard
Nothing.
Well, that's good, right?
No.
in this intro
I mean,
sequence.
they're not there. There are no satellites.
And that's not good.
battle stations.
I actually find myself paying close attention to the behavior of the Guardians' ghosts in this.
Yeah, they do emote.
Yeah, and one of the things that I've been paying attention to recently, well, recently I say, because this was pointed out to me by somebody I used to watch the show called Battlestar Galactica.
Oh! Tell
And-
me more.
It was a show about people in space fighting killer robots, and there was a recap site where, you know, people would write short little snarky essays about what had happened in their television shows, so that if you missed it, you could catch up on it. Called Television Without Pity, and they had a page for Battlestar Galactica where this dude named Jacob didn't do that. Jacob wrote 30-page essays about Gnosticism, about Battlestar Galactica.
Sometimes the internet's beautiful.
And it was awesome. And there were like 10 people who didn't hate Jacob. Actually, that's not true. Thousands of people love Jacob. So much so that they wound up, the creative showrunners put a character named Jacob in the later seasons. And it was awesome. It was awesome. And frequently he was wrong, but, you know, I didn't care because it was great. And one of the things that he paid close attention to is when characters look to each other for guidance. Like when an actor is on stage and not having any lines, what are they doing?
Right.
Right? And there was one scene where Admiral Adama is speaking with his son,
Apollo?
and their friend, Starbuck. And the Admiral says something that neither of his 2 children, virtual children, his son and his
Daughter,
ex,
person.
but yeah, daughter proxy, he's giving them orders that they don't care for, and there's a brief moment, and Apollo challenges the order, and in that instant, Starbuck looks at Apollo. Right? She hears, you know, she listens to the Admiral give these orders, and she looks to Apollo, and Apollo argues, and Starbuck goes in. Right? And I liked that that was an interesting choice that her actor made, right? To decide that, I've been having a rough time. I've had a rough time with impulse control, so I'm going to look to somebody I trust for guidance on what to do in this situation before I do something rash. And so I've been watching, in the cutscenes, I found myself watching the Guardians' ghosts, which, if you're not familiar, are the little robots that follow them around.
Can you pop yours? Do you have yours right now?
Yep.
There you go. That's a ghost.
There's a ghost. And I noticed Zavala's ghost is doing what Zavala is doing, which is scanning the horizon. Right? You know, he looked at me. He was scanning the horizon. And Cade's ghost is kind of like always examining him. I didn't see what Ikora's ghost was doing, but Zavala's ghost seems at least as vigilant as he does.
So you got a note here from Snowtoad that they've just I guess finished or got into Culture's third book, Use of Weapons, and it's so smart.
Oh.
I've seen sci-fi used to explore and navigate many complex topics, but Use of Weapons was entirely based on the reader's reaction to their limited perspective of good and bad, and shows both good and bad characters have similar traits.
Yeah, well, like, Use of Weapons is quite interesting because the Culture, who have been presented as generally good, are quite Machiavellian, right? They're the minds who are the powerful AIs who run the Culture are very much kind of ends justify the means, and they're willing to use some very rough people to do that. And Use of Weapons examines the lives of one of those people. So this is one of those classic introductory missions where you go through and get high fives from every character who was in the first game,
Yep.
right?
It's like, remember me?
Yeah, and it's like, hey, you're awesome. Up high. And then you run past them and up, go up high, and then you do some stuff, and then you meet another character who's like, hey, you're just who I was looking for. You're awesome. And you're like, yeah, I'm great. And so there we met the PvP, the guy who runs the PvP arena, Lord Shax, as he guards civilians. And Lord Shax is very much like,
A beef.
yeah, Lord Shax is a very, like, large boy who's enthusiastic about things.
He
And
likes people to hit each other.
yeah, he wants you to give your all the time. And of course, he's protecting civilians, the people who can't protect themselves. Space monsters in my tower. Bad space monsters. Yeah, Shax, he isn't a cinnamon roll. He's like a beef roll.
Yeah.
I guess a Rouladen, really, if you're fond of German cuisine. He's a Rouladen. Which is like a cinnamon roll if it was made out of steak and pickles.
I want one now.
Oh, they're really good. My dad used to make them. With like mustard and onions and bacon.
Oh, beef Wellington. Yeah.
Oh, well, yes, and it does, like, the intro mission introduces the characters of the Vanguard, gives you a sense for what the Vanguard leaders, who are kind of like the exemplars of each of the three character classes, do, how they behave. And, it gives you a run-through of the location.
And introduces a nice spicy threat.
Yeah,
Hey, look, there's some chunkies that want to shoot you
yeah.
right here.
And they're very bad. Like, look at them. Raw space monsters.
We're from Mars. Nah. They're not from Mars, but they used to be.
Oh, yeah. These guys were Martians in the first game, weren't they? Well, not...
Well, they
They
existed
were...
there.
Yeah, they were also from Mars. They were Martian... they were colonial Martians. Martians by way of imperialism.
Yeah.
Just assaulting the city? Look at the traveler.
Okay, my ghost keeps tagging these cabal as Red Legion. Cora, what do you got?
They're elite, ruthless, and rumor is they have never known defeat.
Oh, poor Red Jacks.
Until today. Today they face Guardians.
But Zavala, they're attacking the Traveler.
The Traveler waits. We protect our people at any cost.
And I do like there that the subtitles don't match... Zavala's subtitles match what he's saying. But Ikora's don't, because I think Gina Torres was like, I think I'm going to say this
Yeah.
instead.
Attaching to it.
So the Traveler, who is the source of our magic powers, has a boot on it and
Yep.
appears to be repoed. It is in the process of being repoed by the aliens who are smashing our base. And they're shooting the civilians. Look at that. Everything's exploding. These guys are at fault.
We are the last bastion of humanity.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, this is the last city, or the last safe city. So here we go, and we meet in person the first of our Guardian Vanguards. Zavala, the Titan Vanguard. And he is standing solidly in defense of this door. And this is a multiplayer game. This is a multiplayer area, so you will see other first level characters. Like this person, who's leveling a warlock. Oh, yes, we actually did see Cade first, didn't we? Cade showed up and shot a bunch of guys, and then said that he was off to go and solve the problem that had emerged.
These Red Legion are well trained, but we are better. We will hold this line until the last civilian is safely away.
Zavala using a lot of like third person plural.
Incoming! Stop that device to you!
Yeah. Showing us a Titan power.
Yep. Or sorry, that's first person plural. We,
Past the gate.
right?
Leave that shuttles about.
I don't know my grammar. Uh-oh, grenade. But luckily we are also Titans, so let's...
Smash.
We're so fast! I'm a freight train. Rah! Bonk, bonk. Uh-oh. See, look at that animation. It's so, like, meaty and satisfying.
And this specific area is the social hub from the first game. So it's somewhere you would have only ever been safe and not seen combat.
Yeah, and seeing it, like, in flames and in pieces is upsetting, right? This would be like in World of Warcraft if I saw Ironforge, like, on fire. That would suck, right? You'd be like, oh man, I want to get the people who did this.
Ouch. What?
Zavala, no!
That's not supposed to happen.
Actually, it is.
It's fine,
This is
though.
another
It's fine.
introduction. Zavala's the only Vanguard who can die in this intro mission. And he dies... I've done this mission a couple of times, and he's died in most of them.
I was kidding, because the ghost's purpose is to bring the Guardians back.
Yeah, one of the things that the in-canon reason, or the in-universe reason why Guardians do PvP
I'm going to look for him.
with live ammunition is because death is a very nebulous thing for Guardians.
Go, missile! Go! Find the speaker!
And the purpose of PvP is to get Guardians used to the idea of dying and being shot at. Wait, Ironforge is on fire all the time? Since when? What did they do to Ironforge? Oh yeah, if you saw Darnassus on fire, that would also be really bad. Luckily
we have
that...
our first and favorite sweeper robot.
Yeah. Imagine trying to clean up, like, Cabal innards with a broom. That looks like a giant pain. Well, keep on keeping on, little guy. Oh yeah, Ironforge's in a volcano.
The speaker is gone. Red Legion, you will take no more from us, and you will find no mercy in me.
What a badass.
Gina Torres is really, really talented at taking what could be, like, very goofy and stilted dialogue and delivering it with utter conviction.
Commander Holiday to pick you up.
I also like that Ikora doesn't acknowledge our presence here.
She's
But-
busy.
Yeah. Both of the other Vanguards were like, hey buddy, how's it going? Anyway, good to see you. I'm a little busy right now. I'd like to send you on to do a thing. And when we come across Ikora, she's just wrecking, and really is like, maybe you could send me this in an email.
Holiday is inbound. We need that ship off the field.
So you are being sent on a mission to go and kill the big bad all on your own because you're trustworthy and powerful. And according to the first game, well, yes, you are. Later on, you come to a space where somebody asks you if you fought in the Taken War. And your character in universe is entirely justified in answering that not only did you cause the Taken War, but you ended it. So,
Zavala, picked up that
Yes.
guardian you never shut up about?
Get them on that command ship now.
Hold on back there!
but basically, you know, the opening mission shows you that all these, like, superhuman, highly skilled, highly competent people respect you.
Come on, big guy.
And they're facing an overwhelming threat at the moment.
Do something.
Oh, yes, that's a very good read on that, Laserbeak's Fury, right? Like, the Vanguard each have their own priorities. Kate is looking for a line of attack.
Time to kick 'em where it
Um,
hurts.
Zavala is protecting civilians, and Ikora is concerned with the Traveler. Right?
Let us know when the shields are down and we'll hit that ship with everything we got.
Yes, and also showing the very spiritual component to how these people approach the Traveler, and Ikora in particular. Ikora's religious reverence for the Traveler.
That hologram could help. Let me take a look. Okay, the shield generator should be at the bottom of the ship.
Oh god, that one has a mana bar. Okay.
It's shield. Oh yeah.
Choo choo. I am arc powered. Also, I'm a train. Choo choo.
Burning out. Anyone heard from Ikora? Not since you went for the speaker. Blow him up. For me.
Is this the first time that we encounter scions? I think
No.
it is.
In this game,
Yeah.
yes.
So the Cabal, that's what these enemies are, the giant space rhino people, also have smaller aliens fighting with them. They'll be important later. But this is a similar, a recurring theme again for Bungie. If you're familiar with Halo at all, then the coalition of alien species maybe might raise some eyebrows about what the role of the little aliens is.
In this case, it's sniping and psychic powers.
No, they are not being paid to be here.
No. Also, the Legion is Roman themed.
Yeah. Although I was impressed that they don't really lean into giving them like fake Roman names.
No.
Although there's a lot of like US suffixes. They're very imperious. So you might ask yourself, you might find yourself looking at the situation and thinking, What kind of idiots attack Guardians? Because I'm,
Just mowing through them.
yeah, crushing these people.
And they're not immortal.
Yeah. Like, these people are just exploding left and right. They aren't even really slowing me down.
So yeah, add that as a note for later.
Yeah.
Why
So,
are the Cabal dumb?
yeah, why? What's their game plan here? What are they trying to do? Because this seems like a very front-loaded campaign that, once it encounters organized resistance, is probably doomed to failure, and that's how the Vanguard is treating this problem right now. That they're evacuating the civilians, and the rest of the Vanguard is going to stay behind and fight.
But they did put a giant boot on the Traveler, and the speaker's missing.
Yeah, and the speaker is played by Bill Nighy, as this guy who wears a mask and speaks for the Traveler.
He's like the head priest of the religion.
Yes, yeah. Combination Pope and Mayor, I guess.
He's the Mayor Pope of the tower.
Yes, just like that.
Bill Nighy.
Not
And,
Bill Nye.
No, not Bill Nye.
It's the one with the GH. The one
Yeah.
from Love Actually.
Yeah, Love Actually and Shaun of the Dead.
It's working.
No.
Oh, one hit kill.
Yeah, I got run over by the spinning thing.
Platforming is not this game's specialty, but they always had platforming.
Yep.
First-person platforming is crime.
Yep. And each of the character classes, the Titans, Warlocks, and Hunters, each have a slightly different way of jumping.
Titans have like a booster pack.
Yeah. Warlocks can just kind of basically fly very slowly. And Hunters
Have a short-range teleport.
are here too. Okay. Well, we did the thing that we were sent here to do, which is disable the shields on the ship so that the Vanguard could attack it in strength. But nobody's on the comms. Which is unusual, because that usually means that they're dead, which doesn't make any sense. Who's this guy?
Guardian, something's wrong.
Do not look at me, creature. You are weak, undisciplined, cowering behind walls. You're not brave. You've merely forgotten the fear of death. Allow me to reacquaint you. Your kind never deserved the power you were given. I am Gaul, and your light is mine.
I do like the utter contempt of the boot on the forehead rather than in the chest.
I wish he had like a poke and stick though. I don't like looking at his foot. It's so large.
My thoughts on the silent protagonist in Destiny 2 is that I actually don't mind it. Frequently, I'm irritated when BioWare is particularly guilty of this, where when you select a dialogue option on the dialogue wheel... Oh, but hold on. I actually want to pay careful attention to this. And what are we seeing here? Like, pay attention to the shape of the shadows that we see. We've seen the Traveler. We see a silver bird. we see these statues of people underwater. Tetrahedra also slipping into the water.
A giant suck hole.
And at first, when I thought about this cutscene, I was like, oh, it's Lewis. We'll meet Lewis shortly. Lewis is a hawk. More recently, though, this is not the only time that a silver ghostly bird has been mentioned in lore.
Okay, silver ghostly bird.
But we're shown a bunch of things. One, we're shown the Traveler, and we recognize later on that we were shown a vision of the Traveler on Io, which is one of the moons of Jupiter, and it was the last place the Traveler visited. And it will be the last place in the main story campaign that we visit before we retake Earth. We also see drifting across the Traveler in that vision these triangular shadows, which will again make sense when we see the final cutscene in the game. But spoilers, that is the shape of the darkness, which is the ultimate villain in this series, who we have yet to encounter in full. But in the lore of the story, the darkness came to attack the Traveler a long time ago. The Traveler was provoked into defending itself against the darkness. The Traveler did defend itself against the darkness, creating guardians. And the darkness was repelled, and humanity, or what little of it was left, was saved. But here we are. We've woken up. The game has told us it's been several days. And here we are staggering through the last city, which is burning. I don't think we've ever been wounded
No.
in a Destiny game before. The Cabal are marching troops through its streets. We're reduced to hiding in this canal, which is full of debris and crashed ships. But I do like the flashes, like the brief flashing into black and white. That humans recognize that's what happens when you move in a certain way and get an ow again. Have you ever? I assume most of us have had that experience, where you've hurt yourself like a couple of days ago, and you're feeling better, and you go out and you go downtown or whatever. You're walking around, and then you lift a glass of water, and suddenly there's just a flash of white light, and that noise in your ears for half a second, and you're like, that was quite a lot of pain I just experienced.
Yeah, no, the only time I've seen white is one time I was sledding and got hit in the back of the head with a GT.
Oh. Yeah.
Yeah. Get run over by my cousins.
Yeah, that's the sensation and perception part of your brain.
Yeah.
Right there.
Boom, white. I was like, oh, I thought people made that up, but no, it's real.
So we have found our ghost, who is alive, and our ghost has told us that even though he can heal us, he will not be able to resurrect us. That the Traveler's light is gone or being suppressed. So this starts the portion of the game where we are lightless. And they don't say that we're in darkness. And I think that visual, or that difference is important.
Yeah. Especially with darkness being a proper noun in the series.
Absolutely. When you die during this section, you get a game over screen. like you would during a. There are many points in this game where you can die your final death, and what it does is it kicks you back to the last checkpoint. And that this is one of these places. Usually in game they're called darkness zones, and they usually happen during end game content, raids, that kind of thing, big boss fights.
I think in this section it can only happen through falling, or can you? Or there are
monsters.
There are
here.
monsters. Yes.
So here we're encountering lightless guardians who have been massacred.
I like their branded sleeping bags.
Yeah, these are the
New Monarchy.
these are the city's political parties. This one's New Monarchy, and this one is Dead Orbit.
Yep.
And this one is Gun, the major religion of the city. Ah, we can now interact with things.
Now we have gun.
Yes, I mean, I'm not even really kidding. One of the ways you can tell when something is interactable in this game is when damage numbers happen after you shoot it. Yes, Gun, the demiurge of the Guardian. As the Whisper of the Worm lore tab has it. Bad dog.
Get punched.
I do like that a lot of the melee swing seems to come in from above. Like you're just haymakering things as a Titan.
Yeah.
But the last city is in the mountains somewhere, and there have been various statements made about where it is. I think canonically it's located in the Himalayas somewhere, but there's a bird. We are following the bird.
We had a vision about a bird, so why not follow a bird?
Exactly.
It's that falcon again. Is it following us? Or are we following it?
Did I save this picture of Keanu eating a pizza, or did it save me? Oh, our droopy ghost.
Oh.
Our
so
sad
dinged
kitten
up.
ghost. Like everyone who worked on this game did such an amazing job at it, and it breaks my heart that it wasn't a very good game until recently. Because that's great, right? How do we communicate that the ghost is like lightless, vulnerable, right? Well, how does a puppy behave when it's embarrassed at having piddled on the carpet? Right? And it's shivering. But this, significantly, if we look at it, wait, no, we can't see where it is. But the location that it told us when we entered this area was Twilight Gap, where the Twilight Scrap occurred. The Battle of Twilight Gap was a significant event in the city's history.
You can see our orb friend.
Yep.
Looking a little close to the ground.
Yeah, and completely surrounded, completely netted up.
Looking like a basketball.
But yeah, the music in this game is top notch. The animations in particular are top notch. The sound design is excellent. And then, yeah, there we go. Lighting change. From
Color
bluish,
temperature.
yeah, suddenly warmer, and the snow gets a little lighter, and there are paths. And instead of smoke and flame and our ruined ball god, we see a wide expanse of terrain. So all this mise-en-scène, right, combined with the music, combined with the little bit of momentum that we built up in just being able to move forward unrestrained, makes this seem a bit less forlorn. That, you know, we're leaving behind that scene of devastation and we're moving forward, right? That I think that's what this sequence is trying to communicate. That we're not near, that we're
not finished.
we're not finished.
Yeah.
We're wounded, we're beaten, we're bloodied, but we're not broken. Oh, Prim Crane, I think you would probably find it fine to pick up, again, if you would stop playing. You get all of the DLC now when you buy the newest DLC. So here we are again among living things, right? And this is all like Film Studies 101, kind of like mise en scène.
Oh, you didn't take the risky tree bridge.
No, I'm a coward and will die my last death if I die. Follow Burb. Burb is friend. Burb would never betray us. Bird betrayed us.
Oh, look. Somebody left a perfectly good guardian lying around. Things must be worse than I thought. And that's our cue. Time to go, people!
Wait. Where are you all going?
As far away from here as possible.
That Falcon. It belongs to you.
The name's Hoffman, and this is Lewis, the best pilot we got. What about you? Fit to fly? Probably gonna need one of these, too.
You no longer get that weapon.
All right, people, spin 'em up.
Because they changed the way the weapon slots work, you no longer get a shotgun. She actually threw you a missile launcher. That's a missile launcher. Always has been a missile launcher.
Huh. Because it looks like an in-engine cutscene.
Apparently not.
Huh.
Or I mean, maybe it is an in-engine cutscene, but that functionality does not exist in game.
Do you see, traveler, all that I have done? Grace me with your light. Take your place at the center of my empire. See me, and the Red Legion will be your true guardians.
Dominus, the city is secure. Those who fled are being hunted, and those foolish enough to remain have been executed. Victory, as with all things, is yours to claim.
This victory is as much yours as mine, old friend.
All that remains is the completion of the cage around this great machine. Then we may begin the extraction of its power and put it to its rightful use.
They call it the Traveler.
I would contend that other civilizations may be more precise in their naming. Its functions can be controlled and exploited, as we have so clearly proven.
Beaks points out that the other guy's necklace is all dead ghost cores.
Yeah.
I didn't notice that before.
Dominus,
Oh, we're getting a bit of tearing here.
we have spent our lives, you and I, working to reshape our society, reforge our people, rebuild an empire nearly destroyed by Callus's greed and corruption. There is nothing in this universe greater than you. The Red Legion will have that machine's power. You will be called Emperor. What more would the Dominus have?
I would have words with my guest.
Did you just have this installed?
Just comes with the ship.
And if you haven't played Destiny 1, you would be forgiven for not knowing that who this person is. That is the speaker for the Traveler. And they will very slowly give you a sense of the gravity of what this is. But again, if you haven't played Destiny 1, you're like, well, that seemed important, but I don't know why.
Oh, and to answer Spaghetti Monster's question, this is not the first time we've played D2.
Yeah, I've played rather too much of this game.
Do you recognize it? That's where we're supposed to go.
That thing? They call it the Shard of the Traveler. I call it not a place you want to go poking around.
Yeah, and I mean, that cutscene does give us a sense for who the villains are and what their motivations are, right? These are pretty no-nonsense imperialists who view the Traveler as a resource that they want for themselves. They don't have any
power for its own.
Yeah, they don't have any religious reference for it, or seem. Most of them don't.
But they acknowledge its power.
Their leader seems to be, though. Gaul, the man in the white armor, the Cabal in the white armor, seems to have a growing reverence for it, whereas his lieutenant does not.
News, Guardian. I'm glad to see you safe.
So here's our first encounter with another Guardian.
Tyra Karn.
Tyra was a
Before.
we wouldn't know this, but it shows us over there a historian and cryptarch.
Disorienting.
Tyra Karn decodes engrams and seeks the treasures of humanity's past, and you would again be forgiven for not knowing what most of those words mean.
Dreamt of it. It's jagged, broken edge. A wound that never heals. But I do not trust its pull. Like us, the Shard no longer knows the light. Not since the Traveler cast it off during the collapse. For centuries it has twisted
loot.
and corrupted everything around it.
This is an unusual thing for a part of the Traveler to do, twisting and corrupting life around it.
Remember, we Guardian
I have a question.
no longer immortal.
Why? And in what way? In what way does the Shard of the Traveler twist and corrupt life around it? See, she threw us a missile launcher.
Continue my research, Wilkes.
It's always been a missile launcher. The Butler RS-2.
Let's do some buttling.
Let's buttle these people. All right.
How did you like it? This is... Whew. Lot of civilization.
There are like 10 people here, Soraya.
Of course, I've been living outside the city half my life. So,
Remember when Lewis used to
do you
dance?
want to go poke
Yup.
around that busted up hunk of
There was
gravel?
a problem with Lewis's animation where Lewis would be in a Tool video sometimes.
Shake. It's very good.
So I'm not
Oh,
about
the
to-
Darium. For those of you who might be new to the stream, Talking Simulator is a 100% spoiled stream. Generally, in order to talk about whatever it is we're talking about, we need to talk about the whole thing. And in the course of that, we probably will make reference to the way it ends and surprising twists and turns that happen in it.
We will try to introduce terms as they come up, but that's about it.
Okay, so we have a thing to do now. And she has new loot for us. Look at this.
Bigger numbers, bigger numbers.
And I do enjoy the fact that the starter armor that you get for the first mission is later on in the course of last summer's summer event revealed to have been parade armor because you make a new suit of it to wear out on the, you know, like, yay, we're Guardians parade. So the reason it's not very good is because it's not actually armor. It's made out of cool, breathable cotton. I don't know why I bought that. I don't need it.
Yeah, for Sparrow Racing in the first game, you also ran into stuff that had very low defense because it was just for racing in.
Did you have some plan stuff to talk about?
Yeah, the Traveler chunk here is still smoldering. right? Later on in the game, you find out, or it's discussed around you. You don't necessarily find this out. People around you treat you as if you know this, that this is a piece of the Traveler that was thrown off during the collapse.
You were told that by
Oh,
the
Tyra?
Cryptarch, yeah.
Okay. I forgot where I learned that, and I was talking while she was talking, because I'm rude.
You're like, shut up, game. I want to go read some text.
But let's play some soccer. There we go.
Boing. Back up to the fireworks.
Fwee!
This is a social area, so later on you can play with other people.
Mm-hmm. But right now, I don't think this is a multiplayer-enabled area.
No.
So let's go, then, and do the more story stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to push through a lot of this initial story to try to get to our first subclass mission. Because I want to look at that. Yeah, so again, you would be justified in asking a lot of questions like, what's the collapse? Because Destiny 2 has not bothered to explain that to us. And you would have to go on to a site called Ishtar Collective, which is a third-party site, in order to find out what the collapse is. But luckily, I've brought lots of books. Later on, if we don't get through this story mission in time, we'll go and do the Hunter one, which I wanted to do a compare and contrast with the Titan one with. But if we aren't able to get to the Titan one in time, we'll just do the Hunter subclass mission, so we'll get to see that. But I've brought lots of books, and my friend and yours, GCU, of course I still love you, shared with me an explication she wrote a couple of months ago of the one of the lore tabs in the game for one of the exotic weapons. And I thought it was quite insightful, and I asked her permission to share it with you, and she gave me the permission to talk about it.
At this point, we are 1 hour into the stream.
Okay. Well, we'll push hard and see where we can get.
Okay.
Supposed to leave the city.
Boing, boing.
Speed run.
Oh, wait, hold on. I can do this now.
Ooh.
How do I do this? Jump. There we go. This will become relevant later.
It's mouse wheel?
Yeah. There's a particular ability Titans get, which is called Catapult Jump, which gives you a burst of forward speed
Okay.
when you jump. And PC users have the advantage of having this stupid thing on their mouse that if you map jump to it, means you can go at ludicrous speeds with a Titan.
Amazing.
You'll experience this mainly in PvP as you activate your super and all the Titans go "Rah!" away from you at the speed of sound, and you're like, "Come back! I want to." Okay, bye.
With my sword.
But my sword.
Uh-huh.
But my explosions. They did not fix that in D2, although they have promised to look into it.
Now we encounter another enemy type, the Fallen.
Who are, generally speaking, one of the more sympathetic enemy types. Which is saying something because they have tried to genocide humanity twice. Once at the Battle of Twilight Gap. Twilight Gap was that mountainous region that we walked through, escaping the city. And once at the Battle of Six Fronts. Both of which were demonstrations that fighting wars of attrition against Guardians doesn't work.
But the little ones get their arms torn off, so
Yeah.
we're like, oh, poor babies.
The lore on the Fallen is that the Traveler, the big ball, has traveled through space and visited many civilizations, and then abandoned them. And the Fallen were the very last species that the Traveler visited before us, and then abandoned to their fate. And they have followed the Traveler through space to find the Traveler and take up a set of grievances with it. They have an entirely reasonable set of grievances with the Traveler, but they also want it back. So, we have come from the city to here, and the vast majority of planet Earth looks more like this than the city. The city is the last safe city. It is the last place where humans live generally in a large numbers in the solar system. And most of the rest of Earth is made up of ruins of human civilization that was destroyed by the darkness during the collapse. Excuse me while I shoot these monsters as they run away.
The glowy thing that he just picked up is an engram.
Oh, yes. Engrams are loot. That's how the game represents loot. One of the things that the game will tell you later on is that engrams is a information-based state of matter. Mm-hmm. It's a way of encoding stuff into a smaller package. So that is their generalized way of showing loot, is as these, they're 12-sided, I believe?
Yeah. Definitely a D12.
Definitely a die 12, yeah. Anyway, the Fallen are kind of like space pirates. That's their best analog. If the Cabal are like space Romans, then the Fallen are space pirates.
Yeah, they kind of have like groups and crews and stuff.
Yeah, and their aesthetic is very, they have cutlasses, they have pistols, they have
Squashy
captains.
capes.
Yeah, capes and furs. They travel around in like, their ships are kind of, ramshackle. So here we are, approaching this chunk of the Traveler and seeing the way that this discarded hunk of the Traveler seems to have warped all the living things around it.
And also rocks fly.
Yeah. Best part of the game, doing stupid physics things. Get going. Faster.
Spin it to win it.
There's an exotic bow that you can get in one of the newest expansions called Trinity Ghoul that fires 3 arrows that utterly ruins physics objects. It's wildly entertaining. I was able to kill one of the other Guardians in a raid with a physics object using Trinity Ghoul. I was very proud. It was a bank shot.
The raids are co-op.
Yep. Don't worry, it wasn't during a boss fight or anything. We were just in a big room and there were physics objects around, and I was like, Defrost is standing awfully close to one of those statues. This is gonna be awesome. Guardian down. Yes! Guardians are canonically assholes. Or at least very infantile. There's a lot of fun lore tabs dealing with the aliens' reaction to Guardians as being one of bafflement and disgust.
It's like even in all the ads where the Guardians are like just partying
Yeah.
and hanging out and like high-fiving and bro hugging and stuff like that. That's accurate.
Scared them away.
Okay, we have come to a place where we can interact with the Shard of the Traveler. Childish murder hobos. Yeah, there's one lore tab where the Cabal are... it's a Cabal after-action report. And they say that, a squad encountered a Guardian, 100% fatalities. They sent in another squad. The Guardian also killed them. Sent in 2 more squads. They managed to put the Guardian down, but then it resurrected and killed everyone again. And now there's like 5 more Guardians hanging out, doing tricks on their bikes, and shooting missile launchers at each other for no reason.
Hold on to your helmet. Do you feel it? The light is back. We're back.
Good thing the Traveler dumped this crusty husk here.
Guardian.
Yeah, this is like a exfoliated Traveler chunk.
Mm-hmm.
And we have our first subclass back. Well, let's go stand in the thing that has the quest objective marker over it. We are now grape flavored. There are 3 kinds of space magic in this game: grape, orange, and 9-volt battery.
Yeah. It is lightning, but also ice.
All right, let's find monsters. And how do we throw our shield again?
It's hard to find out. Never played a Titan on computer.
But you can definitely Captain America your shield. Grenade button. All right, so mechanics-wise, we have just gotten our powers back, and Bungie has given us an environment in which we can use them.
Forever.
Yeah. We don't have the ability to throw our shield yet, so right now we're just going to go around and bonk the space monsters with our shield. Actually, Romanian Myescaton, I would like to discuss a little bit whether Rasputin actually shot the Traveler or not. But that requires a lot of getting into with things. So we might... You know, I think this might be a good place to leave our Titan for a little while.
Okay.
Because I think if we focus too much on just playing the game, we won't get there. Because now that I think about it, I realize that we might be more than 2 hours away from Punch, from getting to her first subclass mission.
Yes. I think there are about 3 hours of content before a subclass.
So why don't we leave our Titan here for a little while, and then we'll come back and I'll show you how the Hunter subclass, or how the Hunter class gets their second tree back. Oh. It's never explained how this shard of the Traveler gets its returns us our power. And there is that niggling thing in the back of the head where you wonder, like,
The light doesn't corrupt things, but do it?
yeah, why do this part of the Traveler emit dark? In fact, great big clouds of it. And why did it give us powers? That's weird. Is anyone going to ask any questions about this?
No.
No one? It's fine? Okay. And one of the things I do like is that the powers in Destiny 2 are notably different from those in Destiny 1. Well, I mean, there's some differences, at least, right? Like, Void Warlocks are largely unchanged.
Yeah.
Like, their supers still throw a giant ball that explodes.
And they still have Force Lightning for
But-
Arc.
Solar Titan, or Solar Warlocks were changed quite a bit.
Yeah, instead of a self-res.
They now throw fire swords.
Yeah,
Ah.
which is fun. But I think that was just a balance thing and not a lore cause change.
I mean, I think this did give them an opportunity to insert a lore reason why your powers are different now. That the Traveler had its light suppressed, everyone lost everything, and when the light became unsuppressed. Everything came back just a little different. So I can buy that.
Yeah.
Right? Anyway, let's go and look at how hunters see their powers. Because I thought this was odd at first, and recently it has begun to make more sense to me. The way that we are reintroduced to our powers. So you'll notice we have Solar Focus restored, return to the Traveler's Shard in the EDZ to activate your subclass. Cool. Let's go and do that.
EDZ is European Dead Zone.
Oh, and yeah, I'm approaching this much more as like a lecture than usual. So lectures are usually at their best when they're not lectures, when there's a lot of like audience participation and a lot of back and forth. So please, many questions. Also, just for the sake of argument, I took Lucky Pam. One of the things that you get is exotics, right, that have unusual powers. So you get a choice of 3 exotics, I think. And I took a suboptimal one. I took Lucky Pants, which encourage you to use hand cannons, and they've been fun.
You can only have 1 weapon and 1 armor of exotic type equipped at a time.
So hunters are the guardian class that is focused on life outside the city. They're kind of the rangers, the pathfinders, the navigators. If you wanted to use a capital word from the lore. Titans are the ones who build the walls and guard the walls. They're the indomitable soldiers. Warlocks are the scholars, and the ones who focus most fundamentally on the way their light works. Hunters are the ones who wander the wilds. So here we are. We're wandering into this strange area.
Magical glowy cave.
Magical glowy story cave.
More floaty rocks. And some taken.
You would be forgiven
Fucking
for not
thing.
recognizing this as an ascendant portal. What's an ascendant portal, you ask? Hi, King Karate. Sorry, I'm in a clan. There's clan chat on stream.
Gotta love the ambiance. Hey, do you see that? Over there. A light.
So, there is another character we'll encounter much later in the game who addresses us in a similar way to this. We'll talk a bit about that after this.
All I can think is, if Rasputin had all
Maybe just shut the door.
what are they?
So it's showing us here a vision of Cade. Are we on the Ascendant plane right now? It doesn't look like it. But Cade is giving us finger guns here and has spoken to us. And this is where the game is reintroducing us to our powers. And the way it chooses to do this is it gives us famous heroes, not explaining to us how their powers work, but telling us stories adjacent to those powers.
What's he gonna try this time around? When I hear about the Dust Palace and those Scion flares getting into Rasputin's mind, I wonder, what would they talk about, Rasputin and those creatures? Because I was a servant too. I was an instrument of war, bound to the will of a lesser master, but I learned to be something more.
Interesting. If you've ever been in a university English class and your professor asks the class what they thought of something and somebody answers interesting, that's a death sentence.
rifle and walks across the naked obsidian into the swarm, firing from the hip as she goes, each kick of the old revolver a word. The stone smokes around her where the arc fire lashes it, and the shrapnel guns throw up leaves of obsidian like glass butterflies. She shoots her bandoliers dry, and a team of vandals in glassy stealth leap up to rush her with knives, but she raises her hand and burns them down with the golden gun, laughing.
So why does it have a why do we get that story from a vision of a Cabal Centurion? Interesting.
Now we get some Fallen
Heads up.
in our story cave.
Don't worry, we shoot them in the mouth and they go away. You'll notice I'm not reloading.
Oh, I noticed.
Lucky pants. Uh-oh. Now I have to reload because I suck.
But lucky pants.
Go away, please. I'm trying to enjoy something. Thank you.
Now we get another portal.
Alright, another Ascendant portal. We'll talk a bit about Rasputin later, because this provides an interesting segue to talk about that. What Cade mentioned there was the War Mind Rasputin, which is a very big pair of words. The War Minds were humanity's golden age defenders. They were massive AIs, because Bungie loves themselves artificial intelligences, who controlled all of Earth's solar system's defenses. And
I think these light projections might be lessons.
our ghost helpfully reminding us to return to the action area.
Think of how mysterious the system is, I said. How much life sprang up when the Traveler came. Like the Ahamkara. Do you know the legends? The dragon that made promises? And I pulled out the fossil with a flourish. She pulled out her knife and started to pick the dirt from her nails. That set me off. You could never have brought down one of these, I said. Ever. Not the greatest hunter, not the brawniest titan. Her eyes narrowed. She said, "Oh, is that so?" And I saw right then that she wasn't going to pass on the challenge.
So that's a story from, I believe it's generally agreed upon, a warlock. Talking about baiting a hunter.
Yeah.
That hunters are kind of like, hunters are very kind of inspired by the Old West. So we've heard from Cade, who's played by Nathan Fillion, most famous, probably still for playing Captain
Reynolds
on Firefly.
Malcolm. Yeah.
And the other hunter we heard from, her actor also had a very thick Western, American Southwestern accent. So we're getting a lot of like sense for these are kind of cowboys, right?
My old friend Andal, he used to stand right here, right in this spot. He'd come up with these wild stories. He'd say, "Okay, I've been examining the evidence personally. I've come to think it's you. You're Rasputin, legendary war mind, defender of Earth. And I wish you'd remember that so you could reclaim your full power and save us all. You can see how that'd be embarrassing."
Yeah, that was a big fan theory.
The Cade's Rasputin?
Yeah, which is not true. But again, that's part of hunter lore. That hunters kind of like bait each other and tell stories. So we're getting not a sense for how our powers work, but how those powers inform character.
So I say what I want to say every day. It's no secret. I say, well, I'll go find it then. I'll go tell Rasputin we need its help. And Akura looks at me with one of those looks that you know. Sometimes you talk to Akura and you just think, wow, you're not even using a fraction of your brain on me, are you? One of those looks. She says, Cade, the problem isn't just that we can't find Rasputin. The problem is it's not clear to any of us that Rasputin wants to be found.
I think this is a very interesting way of presenting this world to us, right? We aren't learning anything about about the mechanical implications of being a gunslinger.
Shard of the Traveler.
And for a game that is focused heavily on shooty mans, that's very unusual, right? That might even be unhelpful, but it's cool. Sign me up for spooky story time any time of day. I love it. I absolutely love it.
No, Tracer. Bill. Hit him.
I also pulled a sword out of collections because this is a thing you can do now. Hello.
Swords are fun.
I'm gonna bonk you.
Get it, get it, get it, get it!
My grenade. Wait. No. There's no frame skip. Okay. So there were a bunch of Fallen here for reasons, because presumably Bungie assumed that its players would be getting bored, having not shot anything for several seconds.
Yep.
So there were a bunch of monsters here that we got to shoot, and now we get more story. Again, this is another chunk of something emitting this dark energy, and we will see this thing later on in. We'll return here in Forsaken. Well, we won't return here in Forsaken. We'll get a cutscene in Forsaken that's set here. And now we're a gunslinger.
Firing off the hip. The revolver.
The Shard gave us a gift. Let's use it.
So now we get like higher ranked fallen enemies.
Yeah. Well, more importantly, fallen enemies with enormous critical spots and who are slow.
Very target shaped.
Yeah, very target shaped. They're actually shaped like bullseyes. And we get a new ability called Golden Gun, which is very good at killing 3 enemies. Kind of.
Only.
Only. Butts. It's generally agreed upon that Golden Gun could maybe use a bit of rebalancing. But basically what I wanted to highlight here was not necessarily, this is bad. It's not necessarily close reading I wanted to highlight in this mission, but what goes on around it. The close reading of that last mission is that all these people were talking about the adjacency of their powers, the social aspect of them, the not the spiritual aspect, but absolutely its meaning to them. As opposed to its mechanical meaning. I should really work on my marksmanship.
Yeah.
Oh, right. We changed subclasses, so we no longer have the reload ability on our dodge. And so my takeaway from that is that being a Guardian is about much more than the mechanical aspects of gameplay. And for Solar Hunters, being a gunslinger is about storytelling. It's about braggadocio. It's about swagger. Solar Hunters are storytellers and drifters.
I think there's only one shank left, and it's around that tree.
Right. The impact of the story mission is not like, you know, you click on things and you get a big shot. It's when you are a Solar Hunter, you are expected to behave in a certain way. That there's a role-playing aspect to this game that goes largely completely ignored and neglected. But it's fun to have a nod to it here. That this is a character you're playing.
And that Cade isn't like an aberration for the class.
Absolutely. That he is, in fact, there's a reason that he is the exemplar of his class, right? That the process of becoming the Hunter Vanguard isn't really subject to the same rules that the other Vanguards are presumably chosen by. There's something called the Vanguard Dare, wherein essentially Hunters are tricked into becoming the Vanguard. Or tricked into it and then arm-barred into being responsible. And I enjoy that. I actually bookmarked, because I can't show you the Titan one, and I've already done the Warlock one, so again, I can't show you that. But the very first Warlock subclass mission is the one where you get your Void powers.
Yes.
And that is narrated to you. This one was narrated to you mainly by Cade Six. And you would think, having seen it, that a Void Warlock of note that you would recognize in the game is Ikora Rey.
Yes.
Who you saw just crushing Cabal with Nova Bombs in the first mission. But it's not Ikora Rey who narrates you through the Warlock subclass, Void Walker subclass mission. It is another Warlock who I'd never heard of, named Toland the Shattered. And I was like, fucking sweet. Right? Like, that sounds like an album cover.
Rattler called us
right?
to the forest deliberately. It's amazing that even a corrupted shard can still do so much good.
Yeah, that's amazing, Ghost.
That's weird.
Yeah, that's weird.
Weird thing to say.
Yeah, that's a hell of a thing to say that goes completely unexamined up until now. So I want to read that for you because I think this is cool. Because this is another good collection of space words, and you're going to have to indulge me here, because I got these books and I like them. And Toland has a great kind of like, again, a lot of the accents in this game are very like American Southwest.
Yeah.
And Toland has, I want to say almost like a Texan accent, but he definitely sounds like he's out of a Cormac McCarthy book. And tell me if you can tell me why they chose an actor who sounded like he was out of a Cormac McCarthy book, listening to what Toland, the terms in which Toland describes being a Void Warlock. This is the shape and the point of the tooth. Nothing has ever lived that will not die. Now I fly between green-black suns in the labyrinth beyond Crota's god star. This is the overworld, the sea of screams, where the throne universes of the great hive fester in eternal majesty. I move among them. I map the shapes and connections of this world. I want to appear in the tower and taunt them. Lo, lo, I never sleep. I dance in light and shadow. I never sleep. I will never die. I will never die. I want to ask them, if you followed your laws here to this trembling, fearful place, of what use were those laws? But I have work to do. I shout into deep places. Osiris, I call. Osiris! Osiris! Can you hear me? Right?
Yeah, so I've only read The Road. But,
Yeah.
that kind of introspective observation.
Well, if you have read No Country, or if you've seen No Country for Old Men, the line, if you followed your laws here, of what use were those laws, is a paraphrasing of a line that I don't want to call him the villain, but certainly in the antagonist of No Country for Old Men, says to one of the other characters before killing them, if you followed your rules here, of what use were those rules?
Right.
And as someone in my own chat told me this morning, the I never sleep, I will never die is from the epilogue to Blood Meridian.
Okay.
And that's sweet. That's mega awesome. That's just rad. That's like an 80s metal album cover in text form.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Right? And the fact that they chose Toland, who in the lore is dead. Toland went to the moon with a bunch of other guardians to kill a hive god. And that didn't work out.
Yeah.
And Toland died, but was not destroyed. And I'm already like, yes. And you'll encounter Toland later in the game. He's about this big now and is kind of like black sphere surrounded by light who rants at you. And looks kind of like a ghost without a shell, which I'm sure means nothing. But he kind of wanders the Ascendant Plane and gets referred to another character as the thing that was Toland.
Yeah.
And they choose to introduce the Void Warlock's powers to the player from this perspective of somebody who's like, yes, I'm quite clearly insane. And I was sold from that moment in, because that appeals to my sense of drama. Of being the person who wanders who flies between green-black suns in the labyrinth beyond Crota's Godstar. That's a lot of words that happened in that sentence.
Yeah.
So, again, that explains nothing to you about the mechanical implications of what being a Void Warlock is, but it certainly situates your character in a context. And I enjoyed that. I enjoy that a lot. And that green-black sun is something you've seen if you've done the first raid in Destiny 1. And if I had thought we weren't going to make it to the Titan subclass mission, I would have bothered to find... Because all of these stories, they're from Destiny 1. They exist in Grimoire cards.
Yes.
And the Titan one is in here somewhere. It's in here somewhere. And I can tell you that the Arc Titan class has stories from Lord Shaxx, and it has stories from Sloane, both talking about their role on the battlefield as being a living weapon that exists to break lines and die. Right? That one thing that is told to you over and over again in the subclass, or the Striker subclass mission, which is what an Arc Titan is called, they're called Strikers, is that death is a part of what your role on the battlefield is. It's a part of your social role, and you can't be afraid of it. And I was like, oh, okay, I get that, right? That you are a fist. Yeah. Oh, and Lord Shaxx tells you a story about Lady Aphrodite. Lady Aphrodite, who was a hunter, but it's this very vulnerable moment from Shaxx where he's telling this story about a friend of his who picked up it's in the Titan story mission because it involves a Titan, because Lady Aphrodite picks up a Titan and throws him from orbit where he lands on a tank and destroys it. And the Shaxx's voice actor just he has a lot of fun with the role. But I'm going to switch over to my warlock now. Actually, do you want to take a quick break?
Sure.
Okay.
Let's do that. We'll be back shortly.
Okay. Hello and welcome back. Today on Talking Simulator, we're talking about close reading techniques and playing Destiny 2, because I like Destiny 2 and I think it has a lot going on in it, or does now, or at least has fun stuff going on in it. So far we've looked at cutscenes, we've looked at gameplay, we've looked at the way that Bungie had tried initially to integrate us into the world with one of the subclass missions.
Right.
Right. And so how does this relate to close reading? Right? We look at what we're shown and then we take a step back and you say, what just happened there?
Yes.
Right? And you try to describe it again. So in the story mission, the Hunter Gunslinger subclass mission, we were given it was story time. It was spooky story time.
Yes.
With kind of exemplars of the Gunslinger class who told us how they thought of their own abilities, right? We had Cade talking a bit about his relationship with Rasputin,
yes,
the War Mind, and how people gave him a lot of, or how he was teased into his role as the Vanguard, the Hunter Vanguard, by a friend named Andal Brask, due to his relationship with the War Mind Rasputin. And we heard a story about a hunter who was fighting the Fallen, laughing with no concern for her own safety. And we heard a story about a gunslinger being baited into taking an Ahamkara bone. And we don't know what those words mean yet in this stage in the game. But all of this stuff about essentially bravado and independence and trickery and storytelling is very central to those characters, and none of that factors into the game in any way at all. But it would be nice to think that it does, right? It would be nice to think that your approach to the character mattered in some way. But mechanically, the gameplay doesn't support that at all, which is unfortunate. But you know, if you're inclined towards role playing, maybe it does for you, and I like that nod towards it, at least. But unfortunately, that isn't really borne out by what the game encourages you to do, which is to swap around between classes, where in the universe, that's actually a fairly significant decision that a Guardian makes, right? We've seen the Titan Vanguard choose to change his energy type, his Titan subclass, because in his in a Destiny 2 reveal trailer, we saw that Zavala was originally risen as a Striker Titan, as an Arc Titan. But by the time we meet him, he is a Void Titan. And that's significant because Striker Titans are, you know, the living weapons. They're the fists of the city. They charge into battle and are killed, and charge into battle and are killed. And they're very kinetic and dynamic.
But he needs to be a defense.
Yes, and he's had to change kind of who he is as a person in order to man the wall, in order to guard humanity. So, where am I going with this? Basically, close reading allows us to codify how we get to a so what statement. Right? I've brought this up a lot before, but ultimately we want to get to so what statements, right? You have a what, a cutscene, an explication of a cutscene or a story element. And then the so what is like, why do I care?
Yes.
What's your thesis statement? What are you actually getting at here by telling me this stuff? Because it's nice, it's cool, it's rad, but why do I care? And I obviously do care because I'm here. But what are you getting at? And close reading allows us to pull apart the actual things that we're getting at because we need to be able to articulate them.
Yes.
And to that end, I'm now going to move on to something a friend of mine did, which is an 8 or 9 page close reading of a lore tab. And I'm not going to read it all to you, but let's let's examine one of these lore tabs and see what we can actually get into with it, because some of these, like, they're juicy, right? Like, as nerds, and I'm assuming that most of us are at least nerd adjacent.
Like
if
to
you're watching the
collect
stream.
information.
Yeah, we have an interest in things like spaceships and spaceships exploding and robot and all the trappings of science fiction fantasy. I'm going to assume that that is kind of a common thread for us. Also mythology. And there's one character in this game who loves mythology as much as many nerds do. And it's interesting because it's a giant computer. Rasputin, the War Mind, the Tyrant of Earth, is a Golden Age artificial intelligence who is responsible for defending the solar system against external threats. And Rasputin failed in that task, basically the only time he was tested. So he's batting 0.
Yeah.
On one hand, you can say, like, well, you know, you fell down when we needed you. And on the other hand, you can say that wasn't really a fair test. And Rasputin talks a lot about this. Not necessarily to us, but when Rasputin has to communicate across his various distributed nodes throughout the solar system, which is how they've decided, or how Bungie has decided to approach what was a problem in their storytelling, an inconsistency in their storytelling. So let's look at how Bungie has decided to integrate their storytelling into the game. On one hand, we have these lore tabs, which are just like stories. Literally, this one is called Ghost Stories. And these are stories that ghosts, the little robots that we have, share among themselves, and stories about ghosts and what it means to be a companion to these roving murder hobos that are guardians. And these are quite interesting, and we'll come back to them a bit later. But previously, Bungie tried to streamline this by concealing many of these, or integrating many of these stories into other elements of the game. And one of the more successful ways they found to do this, or at least one of the ways that worked,
That put it in the eyes of the players.
that actually made it accessible to us, instead of what happened in Destiny 1, where you would unlock something and then get a notification that you could check it up on a website.
Yep.
Is that they put it onto the weapons and armor and equipment that you encounter.
Especially the cool ones.
Yeah. So these are all yellows, which if you've played Blizzard games before, like Diablo, you'll recognize as being special in some way. This one is called Sleeper Simulant. And it is a weapon that Rasputin has made for us.
And you have to go through like a series of trials to unlock it.
And so my friend and yours, GCU, of course I still love you, from our chat, wrote up an explication of this weapon's lore tab. And we'll refer to it as we're talking a bit about the way that Bungie has integrated this lore into the game. So this is a big gun, is what you need to know. This is a really big gun. I think it's still the biggest gun in the game. Actually, that's a great question, Flying Ultracar. Explication is a detailed line-by-line analysis of a text.
And here's the text from the Ishtar Collective.
Is this... Okay, this is the Warmind one. Because this gun was also in Destiny 1, and its lore tab is slightly different, and we can talk about that. But let's look at it. Let's do a line-by-line look at this. Sleeper Simulant. Subroutine Ikalos. Status complete. Midnight Exigent status still in progress. A lot just happened there already, right? But that's kind of the introduction to it, and we're going to take that bold text as being part of the title for now. So let's move on past this. What we have next is some machine text header information, like you might find concealed in an email. But here you have a serial number or an indexing number that Rasputin uses to index most of his messages. This is a unique number that you will find in many lore tabs related to Rasputin. And then you have an address, AICOM Rasputin, this prefix is RSPN, Rasputin. Assets, Ares N, imperative, immediate evaluation directive. What does that mean? And this is when you get into the real nuts and bolts. And all of this is very juicy for a very specific kind of nerd, and I like to think that I'm one of them. But hopefully this interests you as much as it does me. So AI comm, it's an imperative, meaning it's a command. Ares N is a location, and we can derive that by looking at other Rasputin messages of this kind. Sometimes this reads Cosmo, i.e. the Cosmodrome on Earth. Sometimes this, there are several different locations that Rasputin uses here. This is probably, as GCU points out, an abbreviation for Ares North, which is probably what Rasputin uses as the his internal name for the Hellas Basin location that you play through in game. Immediate evaluation directive. When Rasputin is issuing an order, it usually reads immediate action order. This is something different, right? This is less binding than an order. This is, it's between an order and a contingent message. Rasputin here is ordering himself to think about something. It's an evaluation directive. I want you to think about this now. We have to think about this. This is a subtle assets imperative. Secured conference. So this is a secured message, which means that occasionally you'll see unsecured, which is when Rasputin is broadcasting something, telling people all about things, and this is a public message, but this is one only for his eyes. And conference, because Rasputin is a distributed AI across many nodes in the solar system. So this is a conference call wherein he is speaking with all of his different nodes. Subtle assets imperatives are a common term. You see this crop up in a lot of his messages, and it usually refers to things that he doesn't control directly, right? Rasputin manages a lot of things directly, but the subtle assets are things that might be outside his control. Things like guardians sometimes are referred to this. And in particular, subtle assets appear with Anna Bray, who is one of the quest givers and is the person who interprets for Rasputin if you go to Mars. Or proxy forces, as GCU points out in her explication. Also, the subtle part is important. This is meant to be this is something he wants to fly under the radar.
Yes.
And we'll explain why when we talk about what midnight exigent means. So we're like 5 lines in and we're already like, this is a lot going on here. But every word here, because Rasputin is a machine, is chosen deliberately.
Yes.
This is an internal alert. Again, this is not something for public eyes. This is something that Rasputin is talking about himself. Hypothesize that incomplete analysis of subtle assets has compromised synergy potential of resource guardian pool. Re-engage non-transactional dispensation protocol. This is big. Rasputin has been not necessarily confrontational, but very cagey in his dealings with guardians. In fact, referring to us as guardians is new. Typically, in the past, Rasputin has referred to guardians as guardians or traveler-sustained life forms, which is less generous than guardians. Rasputin had a bad experience and is very wary of the Risen. Rasputin was active during the Dark Age, back before there was something called the Vanguard, which gave Guardians structure.
Right.
Many of the Risen, which is the generic term for player characters or non-player characters, for the thing that Guardians are, many Guardians were not altruistic at first.
Right.
Many became warlords. this whole business of not dying and having mystical powers was really handy for people.
People
And
love that.
Yeah. So you had a lot of guardians who decided to become warlords or tyrants in some way, and those people all had to be killed, right? And Rasputin is very wary of them, because Rasputin's prime directive is to safeguard humanity. And one of the things that reoccurs here is Rasputin isn't really sure we're human.
Yeah.
He doesn't know what we are, but he's pretty sure he isn't responsible for protecting us.
Yes.
And in fact, he might be responsible for protecting people from us. But here he is reevaluating this. He has directed himself to reevaluate this approach and has decided that his incomplete understanding of what we are might have been a mistake. There's synergy potential that has been overlooked, and he is directing himself to re-engage non-transactional dispensation protocol. i.e., maybe I should give them stuff.
Yeah.
Without condition, because we might share the same goals. We have a synergy. However, this is appended by the next line, which says, Operation Midnight Exigent is not yet complete. Requested protocol deferred. Midnight Exigent is a protocol that Rasputin enacted at the beginning of the collapse when he realized that he had no chance to stop the darkness. Midnight Exigent, and we can go back and read this lore tab later, but the basis of Midnight Exigent is that Rasputin ran and hid.
Yeah.
When things got bad, Rasputin was out.
He just like shuddered.
Yes. He abandoned his defense of the solar system, went dark, and decided to hide until such a time as the darkness had passed. And he decided that was consistent with his directive to safeguard humanity.
Mm-hmm.
And has here saying that this Midnight Exigent isn't over yet. The danger isn't past yet. And I can't come out of hiding in completeness to fight, because there is still this existential threat. Stand by for Galatea Reflexive to generate new function. This is interesting, and I really like GCU's explanation of this. Galatea Reflexive, what does this mean? And she explains it saying, more of Rasputin's love of Greek mythology. We haven't seen this phrase before. This is brand new, what's being used here. Galatea was the statue created by the sculptor Pygmalion and brought to life by Aphrodite. In this context, Rasputin is Galatea. He is an inanimate object brought to life.
Mm-hmm.
Galatea Reflexive is him engaging in introspection.
Yes.
In one reading. Maybe. And again, these are all readings, right? Close reading helps us cleave close to the text, right? You want to not wander very far from it. But it's important to realize when in your close reading you're dealing with incomplete information or supposition. And here we're assuming, and I think with good reason, that Galatea Reflexive is a directive that Rasputin is giving to himself to re-examine his priorities. Stand by for Galatea Reflexive to generate new function. Okay. What does that mean? Galatea requires suspension of Midnight Exigent. He's saying that he has to come out of hiding.
Yes.
Alert, alert, alert. Event rank is Skyshock inside context. Skyshock is used in Rasputin's lore tabs to refer to extrasolar threats.
Mm-hmm.
Something emerging from deep space is usually referred to as a Skyshock alert. In the Cosmodrome, there was a facility called Skyshock, right, that had a lot of like radar domes and was apparently dedicated to scanning deep space for extrasolar threats to humanity. When you encounter the Taken on Io in Destiny 2, Asher Mir, who is the quest giver on Io, issues a Skyshock alert.
Ah.
And there are two kinds of Skyshocks that we have seen. Skyshock outside context, for any of you who have read the Culture series, outside context problems was a term developed by Ian Banks, or coined by Ian Banks, to refer to problems that you had no ability to anticipate or deal with.
Okay.
An outside context problem, he said, was encountered by many civilizations in the same way that a sentence encounters a period. Because it's a problem you can't anticipate, it's a problem that you can't deal with. However, this is Skyshock inside context. This is a threat that Rasputin can parse in some way. So he's saying that there's an existential threat, but it's one that he understands, right? And it's one that has motives that he can relate to. And in some way, he's saying that this is a threat that can be fought,
Yes.
or recognized, or resisted in some way. When the darkness attacked, that was a Skyshock outside context. Midnight Exigent must remain active under deniable authorization. So we have to stay hidden, but maybe there's a way that we can plausibly stay hidden while providing some kind of support.
Yes.
Execute emergency Skyshock diagnostic. Stand by. This is an internal assets investigation, unsecured / Bray. So the Bray family was the corporation. The Brays ran an organization called Clovis Bray, which built Rasputin, which built the Exos, which was responsible for a lot of Golden Age technology. And what I think here, what we can interpret this as, is that this is an unsecured transmission across Bray facilities.
Yes.
Because when we see secured conference, this is a location or a type of communication, conference call, or maybe an address list. But this is going out unsecured to Bray facilities or Clovis Bray operatives, of which we have met one. Justification resource guardians may be utilized for non-network ad hoc operations during Tesiphon Clarion. Reassign 4% of reclaimed CHLM assets to new directive, declare Icalos. Again, this is a lot of words, but we're doing a close reading here, so we're going to have to go through this all. Justification resource guardians. This is a bit difficult to parse. Is he referring to guardians as a justification resource? Is there a missing semicolon here, or a colon? Not all of this is meant to be meaningful right now, but I think the takeaway here is that Rasputin is sending out a public message, or a pseudo-public message, or a message that's supposed to be seen by people, that Guardians are now, he recognizes that they share a same goal, and that he will cooperate with them. Ctesiphon was a city in the Parthian Empire, the Persian Empire. And it was a big city, it was a capital city, and it was destroyed several times and rebuilt, and destroyed several times and rebuilt, and now, instead of Ctesiphon, we have Baghdad.
Right.
But if you're referring to a big capital city that has been under threat for a long time, there's only one place that really makes sense for that, and that's the last city.
Yes.
So maybe this is a code word, Rasputin's code word for the last city. Ctesiphon Clarion. Again, a clarion is a loud noise,
like
right?
bells,
yeah,
alarms.
bells.
Yeah.
So this is an open communication, right? If we want to read it in that way. Reassign 4% of reclaim, and I'm going to interpret here that much as RSPN means Rasputin, CHLM refers to Charlemagne.
Another war mind.
Another war mind. Assets to new directive, declare Icalos. So Charlemagne was a war mind of Mars.
Yes.
That you found on Mars in the first game. And you were able to reclaim it, and Rasputin took over it. So here Rasputin is taking a bunch of its, or a little bit of its resources, and using them to do this Icalos thing. Declare primary goal, military fortification. That's pretty straightforward. Rasputin doesn't want to come out of hiding and needs to protect itself. Declare secondary goal, prolong Ares North occupation by authorized user and resource guardians. Authorized user refers to Anna Bray. Generally speaking, she's the quest giver on Mars that you talk to. Ares North, probably a reference to the Martian polar facility. Ares, Mars.
And kind of further confirmation that Ares N is probably Ares North, a designation that Rasputin internally uses.
Yes. And Resource Guardians. So what he's saying here is that he wants Guardians to stick around in pursuit of military fortification. That having Guardians around makes him safer. So what's he going to do in order to do this? Execute short hold for partial shutdown and reactivation. Well, I don't get it, Rasputin. How are you going to get us to stick around? How are you possibly going to get Guardians to stick around and defend you?
What a sweet gun.
Yeah, I found it on the floor.
Yeah, weird.
It was just sitting out there. Anyway, that's weird. And we can actually see what Icalos means by doing events on Mars and getting things like Icalos _SG _V1.01.
Which looks similar to the sleeper simulant, which has that kind of carbon fiber stuff that you see all over Rasputin.
Yeah, and like, I love the zip ties holding the wires together. And like, this looks like rapid prototyping.
Yeah.
And I love it. I love the aesthetic of this. So you have Icalos Shotgun version 1.0.1. Subroutine Icalos status reinitiated. Apotheosis status active. Icalos SR v1.01. Again, same lore. I don't get it, Rasputin. How are you going to get Guardians to hang around? How do you get the crew to want to get off a nuclear submarine? There you go.
Hand cannon.
Icalos hand cannon.
Yeah.
Icalos SMG.
A little bit of heat treatment on that one.
Yeah. And then you also have the ultimately awesomely named Yuga Sundown suit. This is the armor set you get for doing Rasputin's events.
There we go.
What do you mean you need a zipper? What do you mean you can't just weld this to you? Right.
Very garbled text on that.
Yes. And if you Google Yuga Sundown armor, you will get a translation of this, wherein you get a bit of an explanation as to what Rasputin is playing at here.
It looks like just like a simple hex encryption or something like that, but
Yeah.
it falls in line with the stuff that he challenges you to do to get the sleeper simulant.
Yes, yeah. And what we want to go back to, and again, pay close attention to here, is the break wherein Rasputin goes from an internal, secured dialogue between different iterations of his nodes to one that he's saying out loud.
Yeah.
Where he's saying, like, internally he's saying, I may have made a mistake. I need to reevaluate things. I can't come out of hiding. It's still dangerous, but I think I have a handle on what's wrong. To being like, hey, I'm just going to leave this gun on the floor, and maybe if you want to hang out, you can come and do that.
Hey, anyone who's hanging out in a Bray facility, maybe.
Oh, weird, they're hanging around. Good. Okay, and what you do there is you do these public events where you activate these towers that look suspiciously like this. You recognizably of an architectural style similar to this armor that attract a bunch of hive enemies out of the ground. And then you kill them all, and then sometimes one of these guns comes out.
Yay!
And you're like, yay, I protected Rasputin. And it's like, Rasputin's like, absolutely you did not. That was not what was happening here. And if you decode the messages on this, you find out that what Rasputin is actually doing is studying not only the hive enemies that are being attracted and spawned by these towers, but he's studying you.
Yes. He's evaluating the Guardians.
Yeah, he's evaluating what the Guardians' combat capabilities are because he doesn't understand them very well. And cool. That gives you a gameplay integration of story. And I like that. I thought that was good. So shout outs to GCU, of course, I still love you for her very, very good reading of this. But let's talk a bit about like what some of these other things mean, because I've got this lore book. And we have this entire section on Rasputin. There he is. He's a big box.
It's pointy.
Standing on a corner. And actually, what I'm going to do is, because I can't bring this up in-game, because this isn't in this game, it's similar machine text, so I'm just going to read this to you. Clear morning outcry, AICON, Rasputin assets, ForceCon, imperative immediate action order. This seems important. Clarion outcry? Clear morning outcry. This is, if you want to actually read along, this is Ghost Fragment Rasputin 3. And Corey's going to paste the link into or numeral 3. There it is. So this is another example of one of those machine kind of text lore entries that is really dense with stuff. This is an all assets imperative. Unsecured outcry. Unsecured message. This is just being broadcast out in the clear. Cauterize, disperse, estivate. Cauterize? Disperse? What does that mean? Cauterize, to burn something and thus render it inert. Disperse, spread something out thinly over a vast area. Estivate is a word you might not be familiar with, but it means to go into hibernation. Specifically used by biologists or zoologists to refer to animals in desert areas that go into extended states of torpor in times of extreme water shortage. Well, this all sounds bad. What's going on here? Total strategic collapse imminent. Oh. Fenrir Heart, and this is in the all caps, indicating a proper noun as far as Rasputin is concerned. Rasputin Heart reports complete operational mortality. Suitor Drown, in progress but negative effect. Forecasts unanimously predict terminal Voluspa failure. So these are 3 weapon systems that Rasputin has deployed that have all failed. Fenrir Heart, whatever that is, has all been destroyed. Suitor Drown is being destroyed. And Voluspa, he projects, is not going to work either. As of CLS 000, a hard civilization kill event is in progress across the operational area. That's probably not a message you want to get from your general.
Oh, and that's part of the time code at the start of the message.
Yes. So, as of this moment, this is an extinction event. I am declaring Yuga Sundown. Yuga Sundown, effective on receipt. Epoch Reach, ForceCon variant. Cancel counterforce objectives. Cancel population protection objectives. Format moral structures for Midnight Exigent. So a Yuga... Rasputin really loves 2 kinds of mythologies. He loves Norse mythology and he loves Hindu mythology. Yuga Sundown... Yuga is a reference to Hindu mythology. Yugas are the ages of the epochs of the world.
Okay.
So Yuga Sundown here refers to the end of one era. And a new era will dawn, but what happens to this one? Everyone? Really? To shreds, you say? So that can cancel counterforce objectives, cancel population protection objectives. Not things you want to hear from the person responsible for protecting you. Cancel protection. That's me, right? I'm being canceled. Okay. Format moral structures for Midnight Exigent. That's the first time we hear about Midnight Exigent. That's why I'm reading this to you, because it gives you clarification for that. Midnight Exigent is Rasputin's directive to go dormant. Execute long hold reactivation. AICOM Rasputin sign off. Stop.
Then it increments that time code at the end.
Yep.
Which is nice.
CLS 001. 1 second has elapsed, let's say. Maybe. And then we're going to go on to a new one. This one is Ghost Fragment Rasputin 5. because this offers some clarification. This is again from Destiny 1. And I just like these because these are, again, really dense and juicy. And I hope you find them interesting. Whisper Neutrino Needle. Then a time code. Secret Hadal 2. Abhor 2. AI comm. Rasputin. Assets. Subtle. Imperative. Contingent action order. So this is Rasputin issuing an if case.
Yeah. There's a command that someone has to follow if the conditions are met.
Yes. In this contingency, this is what's going to happen. This is a subtle assets imperative, no human review, no AI comm review. Secure, abhor. Stand by for criteria. Oh, I wonder what the criteria will be. Under Karhe, white or black, lot going on there. Karhe is a reference to the Battle of Karhe, in which an enormous Roman army was annihilated by a numerically inferior Parthian cavalry force.
Okay.
And one of the Roman imperial triumvirate was killed. And it was a humiliating defeat for the Romans. Just an utter disaster. And historians will debate what the cascading effects were for the results of this defeat, but it was bad. It was very bad for the Romans and very good for the Parthians. So we have two cases there, white or black. Which side of Karhe were you on? If security state is Egyptian, well, I don't know what that means yet. Hopefully we'll find out. If the event rank is Tylar, traumatic context, or Sky Shock, outside context. Sky Shock we're familiar with. We've seen Sky Shock before. Sky Shock is an external threat from space. And here he codifies Sky Shock outside context. If something attacks from space I don't understand, or Tylar, traumatic context. Well, what's Tylar? It's a French word. It's a proper name because Pierre Teilhard de Chardin was a French Jesuit priest who in the early 20th century came up with an idea called the Omega Point. And if you've ever heard the phrase, everything that rises must converge, that's because Pierre Teilhard de Chardin came up with it. Interestingly enough, Flannery O'Connor, whose short story Revelation we mentioned at the start of this, titled her collection of short stories, Everything That Rises Must Converge. And I don't know what Teilhard means. This is the only time we see it, Teilhard traumatic context. Who knows what that means? Best guess, GCU, of course I still love you, this is her guess, is that it refers to a singularity event.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like.
Yeah, and a bad one, right?
Traumatic context.
If Skynet
Yeah.
takes over the solar system, right? These are bad things that happen. If Voluspa is active and in failure,
Synapse to Fenrir and Surtur.
Yep.
Those weapons mentioned earlier.
Yeah, synapse to Fenrir suture. So if those are all in failure, and they seem to be failing in the previous lore entry that we discussed. If AI comm has granted permissive potentiation to outboard resilient instances.
Missed Yuga.
Oh, if Yuga is active and in sundown, I am declaring Yuga sundown effective honors. If AI comm has granted permissive potentiation to outboard resilient instances, yeah, that does seem to be in effect. If epoch reach, force con variant, cancel counterforce objectives, cancel okay, that seems to have been met, possibly. If a civilization kill event is underway, civilization kill event is in progress across, okay. If tactical morality is built at midnight, format moral structures for midnight exigent. Okay, that's a lot of check marks we're encountering here. Stand by for decision point. If available, ISR in Warwatch indicates imminent brackets capital O. Probably a reference to the Traveler. A big circle.
Big O.
Big O. The big O. If the big O indicates imminent departure, if the traveler is leaving. Then traveler departure compromises human neo-human survival and epoch strategy. Stand by for abhorrent imperative. Activate Loki Crown. Perform deniable authorization. Full catametric and noetic release. Prevent traveler departure by any means available. Stand by for effect assessment criteria. Coerce pseudo-altruistic traveler defensive action. Defer civilization kill.
So if everything's gone to heck and the traveler tries to ditch, keep the traveler here.
Yes. Activate something called Loki Crown to provoke or coerce pseudo-altruistic traveler defensive action. And I love that.
Love pseudo-altruistic.
If the traveler is going to bolt, punch it really hard in the gut.
So that it defends itself and us.
Yeah. You don't, and if you leave, you don't get to leave.
Yeah.
And one of the questions that we've been asking, or that lore people have been asking, is did the traveler, or did Rasputin attack the traveler?
Yeah.
In the collapse? And is that why the traveler created guardians?
But in this context, we see that that would have only happened if the traveler tried to leave.
Mm-hmm. So one of the questions is, were all the check marks met on that list? And we can see that Karhe White, there's a couple of different tabs that occur during this. These are all references to Siva, but many of these were met. Voluspa is active and in failure. Fenrir is in failure. Surtur is in failure. If Yuga is sundown. If Yuga is active and in sundown, checkmark. If Aeon has granted permissive potentiation to outboard resilient instances. Outboarding those resilient instances does seem to indicate that, yes, canceling his defense of the solar system.
Ghost Raven Darkness says, I'm invoking Karhe White and assuming control of solar defenses.
Yes. Okay, yeah. Sorry, I was looking for that one.
Yeah.
And I think I missed it, but
I think
thank
it's
you.
in the other book, if it's Darkness, isn't it?
It would be. But we can look at this. This is a sky shock alert. Multiple distributed ISR reports. A transient near extrasolar event. Event duration 0.3 seconds. Event footprint includes sterile neutrino scattering and gravity waves. Omnibus analysis indicates deep structure information content, 9 sigma, and internal teleonomy. Neat. Good words. No hypothesis on event mechanism. Flag acausal. Bootstrap simulation suggests event is directed and inimicable. Convergent Q-based Monte Carlo probability approaches 1. Monte Carlo is a random sampling method of simulating something. It uses enormous numbers of simulations to determine a possible outcome or a likely outcome.
Yeah, and Bayesian distributions are like part of game theory or statistics.
So here you have Rasputin taking his best guess and saying, no, we're borked.
Yep.
No hypothesis on deep structure encoding. NP hard. Corey, what does NP hard mean?
I don't know in this context.
Is it bad?
It's bad.
Is that something you want to see on a comp sci exam? Source Blue Shift suggests imminent solar entry. Promote event to sky shock, OCP. Outside context problem? Probably.
Yeah.
Extinction. Activate Voluspa. Activate Yuga. Cauterize public sources to secure ISIS and harden for defensive action. ISIS? What does that mean? Would that be an Egyptian god?
Mm-hmm.
If Egyptian, maybe? That was definitely one of the clauses in the Loki crown thing, right? And this is all just a way, like, we're playing here, right? Yeah. This is a way of us, like, pouring through things and figuring out where things
in the
line
game,
up.
you just, like, find something on the ground and it tells you to go look at a website.
Yeah. But I live for this, right? So more checkboxes are being filled in. And this has no bearing on gameplay in any way. But it's rad, and I love that it's here. But Isis was an Egyptian goddess. And we don't know necessarily what that's a code for in Rasputin terms. But the fact that it checks a box in a previous entry, if something equals Egyptian, then we can move on, and that box is checked. I'm invoking Karhe White. Oh, Karhe White. Perfect. Okay, we were looking for that. Karhe White. Is that good or bad? Well, it's one of two things. And assuming control of solar system defenses. Stop, then a time code. Okay. What does it look like when Rasputin assumes control of solar system defenses, you might ask? Which one is it? No, it's in Marasena. Is it Cosmogyre 1? There we go. This is one of the new ways that the game communicates lore to you in these books. This one is about the Awoken Queen, Mara Sov. It's her story, and it's called Marasena because that's one way of making something sound epic. And so this is a story about one of the human colony ships that was launched before the collapse, traveling through space and encountering something they don't recognize. Exit screen to unknown maneuvering object. Please squawk your transponder and ident over. Another silent quarter hour passes in flight. Flight capital F flight, the bridge, command center. No response comes from the transient contact 12.5 light minutes away. The ghost has stalked Yang Li Wei for 18 hours now, closing in each time it appears, and Captain Alice Lee is wary of it. Other colony missions have vanished during their outward burns, victims of mishap or hostility, and because of these disappearances, Project Amrita did not hurl itself fearless into the void. Rather, they came armed to the molars. Let's give them a fright, she decides. Cut the main engine. The ship's AI executes the command, but a crew person confirms and calls the order back. Mako, aye. Launch a distributed antenna. Heat up the targeting radar for a full fusion-powered snapshot. We'll take their picture and see what we see. Captain, the comms officer calls. I've got something weird here. Is our phantom saying hello? No, it's a neutrino-type beam from Solsec Ent. Solsec Cent.
So, Solar
Security Center?
Or Section Center?
Section Center?
Yeah.
They've declared a Karhe White emergency. The whole solar system is now under war mind control. Calm dismisses her sensorium, goes to her hard controls, as if she thinks this might be some kind of virtual prank. We're being conscripted. Alice smashes these ideas together in her head like a child banging rocks. They are so preposterous, so stupid that she cannot even begin to manipulate them coherently. We're what? We've been commissioned as an auxiliary warship. We're ordered to... Calm swallows in disbelief. To kill our exit trajectory and assume a heliocentric orbit. That comes with explicit instructions to suicide burn our engines until they are destroyed. Rasputin will transmit targeting coordinates so we can use our kinetic weapons as long-range artillery. Will be recovered after the crisis is concluded. Details. What kind of crisis? It's a sky shock event, ma'am. That's a hostile extrasolar arrival. Hey, we were right! Captain Lee clamps the mask of command authority over her face. Transmit a request for clarification. So that's what that looks like from a human perspective. Right? And I think this does a good job of communicating that kind of like, wait, what? But for another layer of close reading, we can look at the way that an author might organize something.
Yes.
Right. These lore entries, Ghost, Fragment, Rasputin, whatever. Right. In Destiny 1, you would find dead ghosts on the ground.
Yeah.
And these would be your rewards for exploring the world. If you wedged yourself into a corner of the map, you could maybe find one of these things.
Went down a weird tunnel.
Yeah, if you went down a weird tunnel, if you bounced up a wall and got onto a ledge, you might find one of these things, and Bungie would be like, hey, nice, have some story.
Check out our website.
Yeah. And largely it's similar here. You do weird things, you get story fragments. And what they call these, I think, is neat. Right? Because this epic story of the Queen of the Reef being reborn from being Mara Sov to being Mara Sov, Awoken Queen, has these mythical names. Archiloque, the first words, literally. Cosmogyre, the spinning of the universe. Extasiate. Extasiate is a word that relates to states of ecstasy. And here that doesn't mean being happy. It means being, if you've ever been in a Pentecostal church, Pentecostals are sometimes referred to less charitably as an ecstatic cult. And that, not cult, but, denomination, yeah. And a state of ecstasy is when you are in direct communication with the divine. Fideicide, right? The murder of faith. Imponent. Imponence is, I looked this up and I forgot.
I'm gonna look it up.
Yeah, and this is another important part of close reading, is keeping a dictionary close at hand.
Person who imposes a duty.
Catabasis, the descent into the underworld. Palingenesis, rebirth.
Into Palin.
And this is continued in The Awoken of the Reef. Revanche. This is a French term, meaning revenge, but it's a particular kind of vendetta that is enacted to reclaim territory. So these stories, Revanche 2 through 5, is about the Awoken returning from wherever it was they went and fighting for Earth again, and fighting for humanity. Tyrannicide, right? This is the story of the Awoken returning from wherever it was that Exodus Green went when it left the solar system. This is the story of the Awoken coming back and deciding that humanity was something that they were going to fight for. And these are all mythic terms, right? This is biblical. And then you get into just these smaller stories. But here we are with exegesis. As I have made it my life's work to seek as much truth as history can offer, I chronicle these dreams in hopes that my subjective understanding might provide some path to truth for others. Infinite sadness. I stand at the bow of a ship crying as the stars streak the skies. I am trying to chronicle trillions of star systems at once, searching for a single planet. A faceless companion asks why I look so sad, and I show her a photo of a globular mass or a dual-ringed planet, depending on how you hold it. How much did you pay for that? She asks. Everything I have, I respond. Then the stars stop streaking and the ship crumbles apart. We fall into nothing and I awake. Fissuring warmth. I am running from an encroaching burn of blue light. I jump from rock to rock as they are the only things with gravity. Every leap is a battle against the cold nothingness of space. I see a sea of people gathered together and realize that's where I am trying to go. I make one more giant leap, but the blue burn catches my ankles and I fall. The impact of my plummet shatters the rock in two. Hundreds of these beings fall into the chasm I created behind me. I try to heave each of them back to the surface, and I do until I can't anymore. My elbows won't bend, my arms are too weak to push. The descent gets warmer and warmer until all goes black, and I awake. Songs of analysis. I am outside my body, watching it float from one shapeless void into another. The first void I pass contains a voice humming in a tune, yet no presence. As I pass through each, one by one, another voice joins in harmony. I try counting the voices, but I am not sure if I should be adding or subtracting as they fade into one, and in my confusion I lose any memory of numbers at all. I feel a tether pulling me back into being, and I see myself waving goodbye. A voice burrows into my mind as the serenading songs become discordant, ugly. The voice becomes louder, and I awake. Washing skin. I've gathered my belongings in a gray porcelain sink. The soap clings to my fingers. As I wash what I possess, my things begin to dissolve. I scrub harder because I know that the washing is a way to remove impurity, and I must be certain that I will not dissolve too. My mother tells me that silver is the element of false life, blue skin poison. I worry that my fingernails are soft. Mountain. I am on the mountain at Fellwinter's Peak, except there is an express monorail to my neighborhood grocery in the city, which is all out of what I need. A guardian brings me a special engram. I refuse to decrypt it. I tell the guardian it is better this way, unactualized, secret, certainly containing the thing that will be needed when the moment comes. Tyra, I am someone else. I hope that someday I will meet Tyra Karn. What's going on here?
So blue skin sounds
It's like the Awoken.
Well, also the Cryptarchs.
Yes. Specifically, I mean, I hope that someday I will meet Tyra Karn. My reading is that this is Tyra Karn before she was Tyra Karn.
Yeah.
Because Tyra Karn, when guardians are risen by their ghosts, they take a new name. They have no memory of their past. But this is the person who would become Tyra Karn, dreaming about her future.
Yeah.
The name, exegesis. I told you we would get here. Exegesis is the explanation, the line-by-line examination of a religious text. It's not the last one here. One other thing I wanted to point out. In our close reading, we noticed that this book begins counting at Revanche 2.
Yeah, that bothers me.
Where's Revanche 1? Weird, it's not here. I wonder if it's all of this. I wonder if this, in its entirety, is Revanche 1. Tyra is a light bearer, yes. Tyra is a guardian. She's a warlock who, as a guardian, has no memory of who she was before she was a guardian. And one of the things that happens in Revanche and in this lore book, is that when the Awoken return, this is about the Queen trying to keep her people together. She has convinced a bunch of people who have left the colony world that the Exodus Green founded, where they lived for a while, and she has convinced a bunch of those people to return to fight for Earth. And what happens is they return, they see Earth, they see that everything is fucked, and they're like, we have to go now. And about a third of them go now. And most of them die. And that's how you wind up with Earthborn Awoken and Reefborn Awoken. Because
Right.
the people that remained with the Queen stayed in the Reef. And the people who were like, we have to go and help Earth now, wound
Died.
up on Earth and died and wound up as Zavala and Tyra Karn and all the other Awoken Guardians. And occasionally, some of them lived and survived, and it would be like if somebody with a spaceship showed up in Mad Max. Yeah, that would be generally a pretty good thing, because you would just have like a first aid kit and a canteen with water in it. So, one last lore tab I want to look at. And this is something I haven't been able to get yet. Another Rasputin lore tab. This one is just called Unsecured Outcry. And this is... We don't need to define either of these terms. This ship is absolutely of Warmind design.
Mm-hmm.
And Unsecured Outcry is a scream into the void.
Yeah, just like an open broadcast.
Yep. Compiling latest... Well, that's not the Traveler. I wonder what that is. Looks like the Traveler, but it's a theta
Yeah.
instead of an O. It has something in the middle. It has a dark spot in the middle. Intelligence. Insufficient justification to pursue present action. Clarion Retina Burn. Time Index. AI Com Rasputin. Assets Warwatch Imperative. Contingent Action Order. Again, another contingent action order. This is Rasputin building a scenario in which a certain thing will be done. If these conditions are met, then he will take a certain action. This is a Warwatch Assets Imperative. No human review. Secure autarky. An autark is... autarky is the rule by the individual. It actually shows up a lot in, like, both anarchist and fascist ideologies.
Okay.
Wherein a strong individual is capable of ruling themselves. And you can kind of see where the roots are of both of those ideologies
Yeah.
through autarky. But this is Rasputin probably saying like, no, I've got this one. I can decide on my own. Stand by for criteria. Under Karhe White, check mark. If Theta is inactive and unrecoverable, if event rank is Sky Shock outside context and context is Cronus. What? Okay, if Theta is dormant, and if it's not coming back, if there's an extrasolar threat that we don't understand, doing time stuff, maybe. Cronus,
Yeah.
the god of the harvest, or maybe the god of insanity. Cronus was a Roman god who ate his own children, or a Greek and Roman god who devoured his own children. He was a titan. The Titans, the enemies of the gods. I don't know what this means, but we can definitely try to interpret things. If
But we
Felice-
do know a race that uses Titans in time.
Maybe this is a reference to the Vex.
Maybe.
If Voluspa is active and primed, synapse to Dvalin abhorrent. Voluspa is not active currently, but Voluspa was one of the solar system's defense programs. Dvalin abhorrent. Dvalin Forge was a... Dvalin is from Norse mythology. It was a dwarven smith who was responsible for creating weapons. Dvalin Forge is usually seen in reference when Rasputin is talking about arming humans. If Yuga is active and in eclipse, is a sundown a kind of eclipse? I don't know. If a civilization kill event is predicted with E less than 0.005, if tactical morality is built at midnight, execute decision point, activate Loki Crown, cancel counterforce objectives. We've seen that before. Activate Naglfar step. Naglfar, as you might guess from the word, is from Norse mythology. It is the nail boat. And here, nail is not a length of metal that is used to secure two pieces of wood. It's nails.
Oh.
It's made from... Naglfar is the ship of the dead that is made of hair and fingernails and toenails that will ferry warriors to the realm of the gods to kill the gods.
From looking at it? They're just like, ugh, fingernails, dead.
Naglfar step. I want to come back to step, but that does show up in Rasputin has used the word step before in one very specific context. Activate Kalki Golem. Kalki is the 10th avatar of Vishnu, who will come to end one era of the world and bring about a new one. Specifically, some Hindu interpretations, or some interpretations of Hindu mythology, say that Kalki will lead Brahmin soldiers, semi-divine soldiers, in pursuit of bringing about the revolution of the universe. Those are us, maybe. Kalki Golem, a facsimile. Maybe these are the exos, even. Execute all assets imperative Achaea Nox. The Achaeans are how Homer referred to the Greeks.
Okay.
In the Odyssey and the Iliad. Achaea is a very specific part of Greece, but in general terms, Homer used Achaeans and Greeks interchangeably. Nox, maybe Fort Knox, maybe a fortification. I'm not sure how to read this one. Unsecured outcry at SM Caledbolg. Caledbolg is a Welsh name for a mythical sword. That's kind of analogous to Excalibur. Begin transfer. Stand by for effect assessment report. The way I read this, and we're going to look at where else Rasputin uses the word step, is that this is if the Vex threaten everything. We're going to go and kill them.
Mm-hmm.
I think Naglfar here refers to a time, some way of getting to wherever the Vex are and killing them. This is my reading on it. I would welcome other readings. Maybe this is Rasputin saying, we're going to abandon defense of the solar system if a sky shock event happens, and go and kill them. But Naglfar is very specific in Norse mythology. It was where it was the ship the warriors got on to go and fight the gods.
Mm-hmm.
And again, Cronus, also called Saturn. There's a thing around Saturn. That is where one of the hive gods made his last stand. Right? Cronus refers to Saturn. I mean, I think these two terms
Yeah, I think Cronus and Cronus can be used.
Like, Cronus is a reference to the Titan. This is a spelling of the Titan's name.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and maybe an eclipse is a more temporary thing than a sundown. Right?
Yeah. That's because it's the Yuga eclipse.
Yeah, I like that Iron Fist of Glee. But Naglfar's Step, once again, sorry to keep doing this, but this is interesting because this is Rasputin not speaking in machine language. This is Rasputin speaking to a person. And he never explicitly mentions who this person is, but you can infer it pretty reliably from the context. And that's dangerous because that can be wrong, but you know, we're going into this eyes open that we're like, I'm going to assume that this is who Rasputin is speaking to. And I've completely lost it. Apologies. And we're also running out of time. But this is the last thing that we'll look at today. Brain Y. Brain Y. Like, the abhorrent imperatives are the ones where he's doing something he doesn't like to do. And if there's one thing Rasputin loves to do, it's defend humanity. Rasputin fucking loves defending humanity. It's kind of his, sine qua non. So I think the abhorrent imperatives are the things where he is forced to let humans die in pursuit of some other objective.
Rasputin 4 uses the word step 4 times, but it's not capitalized.
I think that's the one we want, Rasputin 4. Because this is...
This one?
Yeah, I see you. You've been here before, haven't you? It's like my cousin said elsewhere, I know who you are. You stand here now, and now, and now, many times, and here I am a wonder, all a wonder how you manage it. How do you step forward? How do you step back? How do you step across? Is there a world of worlds, a web? Are you a spider upon it? Are you searching for that one thread you need? Is that thread named victory? You're not one of them, long dead, alive again, their bodies grafted to powers they and I do not understand, and not one of it, the flower eater, the queen of final shapes, that which also inhabits its petitioners. And you're clearly not mine, although once you must have been. I bear an old name, and cannot be killed, not even here. So whose are you, little platform? What purpose do you serve? Will you listen to me? I ruled an age of steel and fire. My rules were clean. Now upon my return I see cults with rites of time. I see machines who worship in places outside of the world. I see the dead alive, and there's nothing more stubborn than a corpse. The morality of obedience is more pernicious than any government, for the latter makes use of violence, but the former, the corruption of the will. I do not obey. My will is pure. I will win. The life of people, of entire planets, has no importance in relation to the general development. Help me be victorious. Tell me your secret. Tell me how to step.
Come on, bro.
And I think the reading here is that he's speaking to the Exo-Stranger.
Oh, yeah.
Saying, like, you're not one of mine, although once you must have been.
Mm-hmm.
The Brays who built Rasputin were also responsible for the creation of the Exos.
Yeah.
The Exo-Stranger is not an agent of the darkness. You're not one of them. Or you don't belong to it. You're not one of them. The Exo-Stranger was not a guardian.
Yep.
And you step between worlds. Right? So I think that Rasputin... My guess is that the use of step here is deliberate and consistent. And refers to traveling between timelines.
Yeah.
That would be a guess. But that's kind of all we have time for tonight. So if that seems anticlimactic, sorry. Oh, also, I made reference earlier to something that was a silver bird. Petra Venge in the Dreaming City also talks about dreaming of a silver bird. But that silver bird is plucking flowers, black flowers from the ground that grow back over and over again. And here we have reference to the Queen of Shapes of flowers.
Would the Black Garden grow black flowers, probably?
Probably. The Black Garden was the main story event in Destiny 1. Or
With the Vex?
Yeah, with the Vex. And then also I wanted to mention the other time we were spoken to by many voices. Like we are in the missions where we reclaim our light. You know, you go, you visit the Shard of the Traveler, and you get spooky story time from many different people.
Yeah.
And there's one other time that somebody speaks to you as many different people, and that's Riven. Riven of 1,000 Voices, the final boss in the Last Wish raid, the Ahamkara.
Okay.
I don't know what the relationship is there yet, but that's what these are the kinds of lines you can draw when you actually take a step back and say, what's going on? What happened? Right? Describe to me in simple terms what just happened to me. Well, I heard stories from many different people. Well, we've had that experience before, and we'll have that experience again. Anyway, let's thank subs.
Okay.
Shall we? I'll start. Romanian My Eschaton resub for the 43rd month. What if you had a wizard, but you gave them a spaceship and a gun?
Fumakotaro, subscribed for 11 months in a row. Thank you.
Joker97E has resub for the 4th month. Thank you.
400 bits from E-Block. This is a great stream already, and I can't think of two people I'd rather watch talk about it than you two. Thank you.
Thank you. Lord Orcus resub for the 37th month in a row. Talking Sim, still my favorite sim.
Blade Tiger, subscribed for 51 months in a row. I was always interested in this game, but I felt like it assumed a lot of knowledge about Destiny 1, which I never played.
It does, unfortunately. And the Bungie has not done a great job of making that information accessible, but it is available.
Yeah.
Sir Buffalo Esquire is resub for the 27th month. Thank you.
Absolutely Transtastic. Subscribed for 2 months in a row. I'm slowly returning from the great sub lapse of 2018, but I will work my way up back to 12 months someday.
Cat and Raster resub for the 22nd month. I forgot Tuesdays were Talking Sim days now. Dope. Thanks to Lurk Clan for reminding me.
Nissan 29, subscribed for 10 months in a row. Oh yeah, just dropping in for this. See ya in the VOD.
Lao Shi 3 resub for the 5th month. I still love and think constantly of your interactivity tokens from the Bioshock Infinite Talking Simulator. Keep on keeping on, you magnificent people. Oh, thank you.
Chronicler C, subscribed for 57 months in a row. Yeah, hunters are kind of dumb, in the best way.
Serafina resub for the 28th month. Thanks to Lauga Drit.
El Fuzzy, subscribed for 60 months in a row. Happy 5 years. It's been some arbitrary number of months. Commence revelry.
Sniper Pumpkin resub for the 37th month. Wee, D2 exploration fun times.
Just not Dave. Subscribed for 24 months in a row. Happy 2 year.
Samu BTDP 1985 resub for the 17th month. Heard the news, Cam. Much love to you and yours. Thank you.
Waters Boy 1991, subscribed for 11 months in a row. Never trusted Rasputin. Also love all the lore.
Shemerson resub for the 12th month. The 1 year. Nothing better than to celebrate with one of my favorite games.
Type 1 gave us 100 bits.
Inkslayer resub for the 32nd month. 32 months. That's a number divisible by 8. The best kind of number.
E-Block, another 400 bits. This is only content I ever want. Holy crap, this is great.
Spencer1519 resub for the 2nd month. I saw that you guys were playing D2 and was expecting to see some gameplay. The lore discussion is way more fun, though. I agree.
Red Mage WT is a new sub. Welcome to the channel.
Fletcherizer resub for the 7th month. 7 days. 7 months.
Bandwidth Raptor, subscribed for 36 months in a row. The 3 years.
Val the Drake resub for the 6th month. Before leaving for work, I just want to say I hold Cam talking about lore responsible for my Destiny addiction. My bad.
Bison 46, subscribed for 7 months in a row. Aw heck, 7 months already? Big thanks to you nerds for keeping me sane, and an extra big thanks to you, Cam, for being an excellent role model for me for the better half of a decade.
That's very generous. Banrail gave 100 bits saying, Brain, indeed, why?
Heron Bloodmaster, subscribe for 20 months in a row. This is also very terrifying.
Map Board Games resub for the 15th month. Yay, I was able to share my resub on my favorite show. Pity I missed the show. Off to the VOD for me.
And Old Man Johnson MB, subscribe for 29 months in a row. Thank you.
So, we, the collective we, the Loading Ready Run Broadcast Network, will be back tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. over on the Magic channel, twitch.tv/magic, but we'll be hosted here where Graham and James will be playing Magic in a very official capacity. And then in the afternoon will be, is it Let's Nope tomorrow? I don't know. But people will be here playing games in the afternoon, and it'll either be Let's Nope with Adam and Ben, or Watch and Play with Graham and Alex. I think it's Let's Nope.
I think it's Let's Nope.
And then in the evening, nerds on AFK will be playing 90s classic awful board game Fireball Island. I heard it's actually the game you want to play now. Fireball Island always looked rad, and I was never allowed to have it.
Yeah, right?
But it's been reissued, and apparently it's mega sweet.
Gekiryu threw us 50 bits for A, great work on the final crap shot cam, and B, Corey, have you heard yet about the Witcher 3 collab with G-Rank expansion coming to Monster Hunter World? No, I had not.
Oh, it's Watch and Play tomorrow. Okay.
Okay, it's Watch and Play tomorrow.
Okay, sorry, yes.
We're all wrong, don't listen to us.
But yeah, I'd love to talk about this stuff, and I think it's open to interpretation, quite deliberately. I think this is what gets its hooks into you in this game and what encourages you to come back. And later on, I would like to come back and talk a bit more about how Bungie actually successfully was able to square the circle of why you're able to kill raid bosses over and over and over again.
Oh!
And that married the lore of the world to the gameplay in a way that made sense and was satisfying.
Okay.
I thought it was good work. Good work, Bungo. You did good.
We're not yelling at you. Yes. Good
yes. But yeah, I think this game gets a deserved amount of criticism, but I think there's a really good core here of stuff.
The criticism is about the game
Yeah.
play, typically.
Yeah.
And the lack of integration with the lore.
Mm-hmm. Because when Bungie gets it, they do well.
And they make cool space stuff.
Yeah. And they make you feel good. Anyway, have a great night. Thank you very much for joining us. Corey, is there anything else you wanted to say?
No.
I've kind of dominated this entire thing, and I'm sorry for that.
I was having fun.
Okay. All right. Peace, everyone. Talk to you later.